Welcome back to the evolution of Snake. I'm Zach.
And I am Madeline.
And this is our ranking, review, dissection of Billboard's top 25 most impactful pop stars of the 21st century. But before we get into that, by the time you're listening to this, the tour dates for the Snares tour, Evolution of a Snake, live in your area. We are coming to New York. We are coming to Boston. We're coming to DC. We're coming to Chicago. We're coming to Nashville. We're coming to Atlanta, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles. I don't think I left. Oh, Madison, Wisconsin. Can't forget Madison, Wisconsin. Cannot forget that.
You actually can't.
You can go and get your tickets at evolutionofasnake.com. The VIP meet and greet tickets are extremely limited. So if you're interested, go and get them. I don't know exactly when this is going to come out, but I think we might be in the middle of pre-sale because the tickets officially go on sale on December 13th. So that is the date to know, and we will see you soon.
It's also the date that I start jury duty. That's really funny. Jury duty. So I have two things happen that day. I have jury duty and I have the tour goes on sale. Isn't it interesting to be a human being?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it so interesting to be a human?
As Selena Gomez might say.
Made her more of a woman. What do you want me to say?
And it did. It will. Going on tour and doing jury duty will make you more of a woman.
Exactly. I'm proud.
So why don't we discuss this list? And we're going to do something that you're not expecting us to do. We're going to start at the top. We're going to start at number one, who is, but of course, Beyonce. There was much discussion on who would eke out the other, Taylor versus Beyonce, to win this accolade, the most impactful pop star of the 21st century. And I think that Billboard's rationale for why they chose Beyonce over Taylor makes sense to me. And it is interesting, though, because a lot of the ranking seems to be based on chart performance and sales dominance, but the exception is made when it comes to the tippy top of the list. And, artistic excellence is kind of like an ineffable thing to analyze against someone else's. So that was a bit of a mystery to some people, but I personally understand why Beyonce is number one, and I am happy about it as a Swiftie.
As a Swiftie, well, yes. Well, as a Swiftie, well, yes. Number two is pretty good, although I know that the Swifties aren't very used to hearing that number two. Silver medal, I know they're not used to it, but you know what? Sometimes it's okay to get silver. Their explanation for it was that while Taylor is the biggest artist, technically by the numbers, they even went out of their way to say, yes, by the numbers, Taylor is the biggest pop star, but Beyonce topped their list because she had 25 full years of influence, impact, and evolution, which is like, okay, that's fair. What are you going to say to that? Are you really going to argue that? So it's like, this is opinion based. And I think when it comes to Beyonce and Taylor, it's like anything that you can say, it's like, well, Taylor did this. Well, Beyonce did that. Well, Beyonce did this. Well, Taylor did that. So it's like, it really just comes down to personal opinion. And they said, this is what we chose on our staff as our personal opinion. And so it's like, what are you going to do? Argue it till you're blue in the face? What's the point?
They will. You're asking
they
the
will.
Swifties.
Oh, I've seen it.
Of course.
I haven't seen it.
They love to argue until they're blue in the face. But I think, it is interesting, and it could have gone either way. I think it was a toss-up, and everybody knew that it could have been either or, and that would have been an acceptable answer. There would have been a lot more outrage, I think, if Taylor Swift had been number one over Beyonce. But the full 25 years is the thing that I kept coming back to when I was reviewing this list, because people, I think, are just looking at the placements, the positions of who's where, and freaking the fuck out. And what you have to understand is this is of the 21st century. It's not top pop stars of the last 5 years. It's going back from 2000. And that's why you have people like Usher, who may seem irrelevant to you now, on this list. But Beyonce has that rare ability to have been a consistent, dominant force in pop culture for all of that time, from Destiny's Child to her groundbreaking debut record. Also, the way that she's reshaped the industry with like surprise drop albums and her visuals. She has, I think, continued to like set her own standard for pop perfection, and she's just competing with herself, which is really inspiring.
Something that I found really interesting that they said on towards the end of the article was they said that if you asked any of the other 24 people on this list who is the greatest pop star of the last 25 years, they would have said Beyonce. And Taylor would have said the exact same thing, for the record. Yep. And I think Beyonce would have said Beyonce. So there you go.
Because she's right.
I thought that was quite astute. And she should, and 100%.
Definitely. And I also think Taylor and Beyonce have called off the dogs They have both been like, please, we're queens supporting queens. We're coming to each other's tour film openings. It's all good. We don't need you to put one of our heads on a spike. We're actually fine. Thank you. And I think it's just such an asinine conversation because they also just do such different things.
I agree. I completely and totally agree. Apples and oranges, my friends. But again, this is something that, I mean, not just the Swifties. I feel like we're ragging on the Swifties just because I see more of the stuff from the Swifties. But I'm sure there's things going on the other side of the equation, whatever. I don't know anything about that. I live in La La Land, and I'm happy to say that. But on the Swiftie side of things, they don't see it as apples and oranges. They do not see it that way. And it's constant all the time. And I'm tired.
Swifties only see, and this is an interesting thing when you look at this list, they only see numbers. They only want to see statistics.
Yes. Yeah.
And those things are very useful, and they are referenced throughout the entire chart because they are a barometer of like what is popular and what is impactful, but they are not the be all end all. And Swifties are completely incapable of like assessing anything other than how many albums were sold. Like they cannot understand the concept of things being meritorious without also being the most sold thing in the world.
Well, what's interesting about this list is that there are times on this list where they put numbers first, and then there's other times on the list where they are taking into account those unquantifiable things. So I think that in general, they're being pretty fair, but there does come a point where numbers are just you can't ignore them because they're so hardcore of a difference between them and everybody else. There's one person in particular whose numbers are like insane, and we'll get to that when we get to it, but they're not only thinking about numbers. This is Billboard, so I mean obviously that's a huge part of the thing, but I think that they did actually a pretty good job of taking into account both factors, which I thought was pretty good.
I think so too. And I think that is an interesting way to go about doing it. If you did it just based on charts, it would look completely different. If you did it just based on cultural impact, I think it actually would look completely different too. So the chart numbers are useful insofar as they give us an idea of how widespread something was, but that doesn't really give you a sense of like how lasting someone's impact was. For example, we have someone like Ed Sheeran on this list who is a chart beast, but his cultural influence is like nowhere near matching his chart accomplishments. And that's why he is, in the late 20s and not in the top 5, despite definitely having the numbers to compete with some of the artists that are in the top 5. So it's a combination of the two. And I feel like there are moments throughout the list where I think that Billboard like over relies on one thing or the other. It's like, okay, this person's chart accomplishments is not backing up the cultural impact that you're saying that they had.
Right.
And that is something that lets the list down at points. But overall, I thought it was pretty fair.
I think this is a pretty good list. I remember when we were talking about it, you had said like, oh, if there's anything that you would like, anybody that you would bring in, and it's like, I'm not actually, there's a couple of people maybe, but the couple of people that I really did think of, they covered in the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not 100% sure that there's somebody who they didn't name at all, like some massive oversight. I actually think this is a pretty decent list. You wouldn't think so if you were just going off of Stan Twitter, but like, I don't know. I don't have that many notes for it. Some comments, sure. I mean, we love to comment. That's the whole thing. We love to comment, but there's not really a whole lot that is like unbelievable. So I think
it's not glaringly bad, and it seems pretty well balanced and weighed. Something that I've noticed is going into our number 3 spot. So this is the third person. We love to see it being girls, top 3, first of all. Who run the world? Girls. The pop girls have taken over the world. We the new. I think I saw some discourse about this particular selection. It is Rihanna at number 3. And it always blows my mind. And this is how I know that the pitch of conversations on the internet is skewing younger, because people are like, she just makes makeup. Like, what does she do? She hasn't put out an album in like almost 10 years at this point. And it's like, you don't get it. This is the list of the pop stars of the 21st century. And in I would say the beginning to the mid of that period of time, Rihanna was everything.
She really was everything. They're not like us, Zach. I've come to realize that more and more. They're literally not like us. It's really scary to see these people who don't have like any respect for like, not even just like, I mean, to say the history of pop. I'm not even talking about the history of pop. I'm talking about the last 20 years. Is that literally so much to talk about? But there's a quote that I really, really loved in this article, which I completely forgot that Rihanna had ever said this. But in the article, it says, in 2007, Rihanna told Paper that she wanted to be the Black Madonna. Nearly 20 years have passed since, and the billionaire pop icon has taken the 20th century greatest female pop star template and fashioned it into a blueprint of her own. Rihanna's version, the reprint, if you will, combines an unmistakable vocal tone, a rarely faulty ear for hits, an eye for fearless futuristic fashion, and a complete rejection of the role model archetype in favor of a gleeful embrace of sexual liberation. It's now arguably the most prized and clamored after playbook for burgeoning 21st century pop singers. And it's like, well, yes.
Ate
well,
that
yes.
all the way
Ate
up.
that all the way down. And these people don't know it. And then when they said that Umbrella was the first song since Mariah Carey did this, like I think at least 10 or 15 years before, Umbrella was the first major hit song that had a rapper and a singer at the same time. And I was like, wait, I didn't realize
she did
that.
the blueprint. The Rihanna
she
feature.
did the blueprint. Isn't that crazy? And these people don't know that. And they don't know. They don't know how to stand under my umbrella, Ella A. They don't know that.
They just don't understand. I mean, Rihanna also has 14 number one hits on the Hot 100, and that is the most of any artists this century. So in the 21st century, the artist with the most number one hits is Rihanna. And Rihanna's taste and her ability to understand, I feel like she's not even someone that goes with trends. She creates trends. Like Ariana Grande to me is a very trendy artist. Taylor can be a little trendy in the sense that she can be guided by like what's going on in popular culture at that moment. For me with Rihanna, there's so many moments in her career where I'm like, you just did something like completely random and out of the blue and it worked. Russian Roulette, following up Good Girl Gone Bad with that as a lead single, crazy. Then going into Rude Boy, she is an artist in the sense that I feel like she is so fearless and she takes so many risks and she's been such a trailblazer. And she really, she's not an albums artist, I think, in the sense that she has these like huge, like culture defining albums, right. But what she has instead is this like stability as a force and a presence in popular culture, thanks to big singles and also a lot of cross pollination. Rihanna has huge hits with Eminem, Love the Way You Lie, 7 weeks at number one. Did you know that? 7
Not just anybody can do
weeks.
that. Not just anybody. They can't do it like that anymore.
And Eminem could not have done it without Rihanna. Could not have done it without Rihanna. The whole point of the song was the Rihanna feature. We had Live Your Life with T.I., 6 weeks at number one. DJ Khaled, Wild Thoughts, 7 weeks in the top 10. What's My Name with Drake, number one hit. Too Good with Drake, top 10 for weeks on end. Hello?
And the other girls? I'm asking you. And the other girls? Where were you?
Where were you when What's My Name came out? I was there. Everybody loves her. Everybody loves Rihanna.
It's, you know what really did silence me, but it goes back to your point that she's really not as much of an albums artist, is that she only had 2 number one albums. I think it was Auntie and Rated R.
Good Girl Gone Bad?
Correct? It was Auntie and Rated R, I think. It's the one with diamonds.
Interesting. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So those are the 2 that which I would honestly say are like probably the 2 out of all the Rihanna albums. Those are probably the 2 most defining albums. So it's like, now wait a second.
And she put out so many albums. That was another thing I talked about in this essay, was how prolific of a producer Rihanna was. Like she was putting out so much stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of that is filler, but Rihanna filler is different to other people filler because she just has this charisma, this personality that comes through so clearly. Like so many of the pop stars on this list would not be who they are without Rihanna's influence. A person I can see really directly influenced by Rihanna is Ariana Grande.
Yes. Oh, 100%. They said something really interesting in the article about how Rihanna was like a master aesthetic curator. And by the time Instagram was coming around, Rihanna was like one of the people on Instagram because everybody thought that Rihanna was like one of the coolest girls on the face of the planet. And still is. For the record, Rihanna is still as cool as she was 15 years ago. It's crazy.
Her candid fashion, wearing that heart-shaped gorgeous cape to the dentist. She really, like Rihanna, to your point, she has a nose for the visual and for the moment and for the spectacle. And that's a huge part of being a pop star. It's not just about making hits and writing great music. It's also about like understanding how to drive culture. And then obviously she went on to, I think she's a good emblem of a new era of pop star, which is pop star as mogul. Many have also followed Rihanna's blueprint when it came to that. Fenty Beauty was really groundbreaking. 40 foundation shades right out the gate. It was about inclusivity. It was about high performing product. And Rihanna set the blueprint for Rare Beauty. She set the blueprint for REM Beauty. Everybody wants House Labs. Everybody wants to have a beauty brand these days. And that's because Rihanna is the it girl, the trend setter.
And the other girls. And the other girls.
So I'm
What
saying
more is there
number
to
3,
say?
absolutely deserved.
Oh, absolutely deserved. Absolutely deserved 100%.
So you're doing great so far, Billboard. You're doing a great job. It is a trade publication after all. Like, they are a serious journalistic enterprise. This isn't Rolling Stone. If you get this list from Rolling Stone, literally wipe your ass with it and flush it down the toilet.
Now, the Rolling Stone completely at the side of your neck. Nobody asked. Well, yes, and I think we should have that conversation. Well, no,
it's a rag.
No, of course I don't. No, a rag, etc., etc. But I just chuckle. I can only chuckle.
We can only chuckle. Number 4, Madeline. Who is at number 4?
So number 4 is Drake. And my first reaction when I saw this was shock, was outrage. But then I started to read the article and I was silenced and I was quieted. So this, you just have to hear this for what it is. From a sheer chart numbers perspective, Drake's accomplishments simply dwarf every other artist of the 21st century. No other artist of the period can match his combination of 13 Hot 100 #1 singles and 13 Billboard #1 albums. Only the Beatles, who Drake caught tattooed on his left forearm in 2019 after passing one of their Billboard benchmarks, can claim the same historically. And no other artist of any time is even within earshot of his 338 career Hot 100 entries. Did you know that he has more entries than Taylor Swift? He has more Billboard entries than Taylor Swift. Taylor's number 2 after Drake. Did you know that?
It's crazy to me. It's absolutely bananas.
He has, I mean, it's just insane. It says Drake clearly stands alone among his peers. And it's like, I can't argue with that. These numbers are insane. Like, these are the craziest numbers of anybody on the whole list. I genuinely think so. It really surprised me. And I was silent. I was like, I have nothing to say. He got #1 hits off his mixtape. I was like, I'm silent. Take it away. Say it. Number 4, Drake.
What do you want me to say? I mean, 13 #1s, 13 #1 albums, 338 Hot 100 entries is what really silenced me.
He's taking it. I mean, why lie? I can't lie. Why lie?
And I mean, Drake has been a clown as of late, but I think we also need to remember that he is, I think, maybe one of the first examples of like rapper as also pop star, like a rapper that is so big that they transcend kind of like just being a rapper and they become something bigger than that. I mean, you could say Eminem, fine, sure. But in like the streaming age, because Drake, I think, also is really epitomizes the rise of streaming with music because of the way that people found his music, the way that people interacted with it. There was that, I guess, would you say, Madeline, it was like 2015 to 2017, I guess, there was a real merging point where pop became a lot more porous and it invited a lot of like trap and like hip hop, like Fetty Wap, that kind of thing into a more global genre. And this is also when it started to open up to like K-pop and a little bit more Latin pop too. Yeah. Drake was really the spearheading figure of that transition of pop into really back into the mainstream in a major way. And Hotline Bling to me is like the song that I think of when I think of that transition.
Oh, Hotline Bling. You know what? I forgot about that song, and I just saw it in a compilation video of like all these songs are about to turn 10 years old, and Hotline Bling is turning 10 years old in 2025, and I was like, oh my god, I completely forgot about Hotline Bling.
That record is really good. That song was
crazy.
I hate to say it.
Oh my, it was. That's the thing. It was really good. There are a few Drake records that are like pretty good. Nobody wants to admit it anymore, but it is true. And
his quality has gone down.
Well, I mean, many such cases. Many such cases. Something that I thought was interesting was that, I mean, you can't really talk about Drake in today's day and age without talking about the Kendrick Lamar thing and Kendrick kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, quote unquote, ending him and this, that, and the other thing. But they brought Kendrick up and then they said, but while Drake may struggle to be as central to pop again as he was at his 2010s peak, that peak remains the stuff of absolute legend. It's even beyond what Kendrick Lamar can rightly claim as a culture moving force, which I actually thought was like a really astute analysis of it. It's like, yes, today we think of Kendrick is, you know, he is like the thing in hip hop right now. He is perhaps like one of, if not the greatest male hip hop artist that we have working right now. But it's like, I don't really know if he's at the point where he's overtaking what Drake managed to do in music at this point. Not to say that
Yeah.
he never could, because I think he absolutely could 100%, but it's like he's not there yet. And Drake still has something that people want to forget, but Billboard remembers. Billboard
Billboard
remembers.
remembers. Well, Kendrick
Yes.
is also more assertive and acerbic in his lyricism. Like he is very much like a pointed artist. He has like statements to make. Drake is not like that.
No.
Drake is focused.
No.
It's focused on the vibe. He's focused on the club. He's focused on hitting the
Right.
jewel. This is really what I remember about my experiences with Drake, and it really captured young men, specifically in a way that pop music doesn't really do anymore. And I think also Drake was kind of taking over the Kanye mantle a little bit, because I think Kanye occupied that space that Drake occupied in maybe the like early 2000s. And then after, I would say it was probably after Yeezus, Kanye started to fall off a little bit in terms of just being that relevant. And Drake filled that space.
100%. Yeah, Drake did something really interesting also, which the article didn't really get into this at all, so it's like I'm being gaslit. But it's like I remember this happening, is that Drake really, I won't say that he pandered to or he catered to, but women were really into Drake.
Oh,
Women were
yes.
very into Drake.
Champagne Poppy.
And many such cases. So I think that that's something that he managed to tap into. It's not every male hip hop artist that can tap into the female demographic like that, but he was doing it. Women loved him. I remember specifically like Take Care era. That was like more women,
Too
I think, were
Good,
listening to
Take
Drake
Care.
than men. Yeah. So that was something really interesting.
He was, a lot of the times it seemed like he was writing for women, which is something that a lot of hip hop artists and rappers weren't doing, or they were kind of maybe writing at women or to women rather than for them. And I think that Drake definitely had this reputation as like a soft boy, a sad boy. The Weeknd did that better, but Drake did it in a way that was really cool. The Weeknd was like dark and angsty, and Drake was just kind of like Champagne Poppy. He was the king of the club, and he also had like a sweet, sensitive side.
Well, also being attached to, I think, in Young Money, being attached to, of course, Lil Wayne, but also Nicki Minaj. It's like Nicki Minaj was for a time, and we can get into this when we talk about Nicki Minaj, but like she was like for a time. It's not really the case anymore, but during like Drake's like big time, Nicki Minaj was the female rapper, and him and Nicki were working together all the time, and it kind of posited himself as like in the female like arena. To like
Young
women
Money
are interested in
raised
Nicki
me.
Minaj, women are interested in Drake, and that kind of like came together.
And women are the biggest consumers of pop music, so it kind of tracks that when you appeal to them, they like it.
Yeah.
Number 5, we have one Ms. Lady Gaga. Now, Lady Gaga has 5 number 1 hits on the Hot 100, including iconic tracks Just Dance, Poker Face, Born This Way, Shallow, and Rain on Me. She has 11 top 10 singles and multiple chart-topping albums, including Born This Way, which did over 1 million units in its first week sales. And of course, the Star is Born soundtrack. Her debut album, The Fame, really spawned a lot of global hits and shaped late 2000s pop. She has won 13 Grammy Awards and an Academy Award for Shallow. What did you think of Lady Gaga's position here at Madeline?
Well, I have to say, what are we supposed to say except for diva? One thing that really did silence me is that the Fame or the Fame Monster never went number 1. I was like, that can't be, but it didn't.
It was probably The Fame, I guess, because it was her first record. And it came out before, I think, even Poker Face had become a real hit yet. So it didn't get the chance, hence the Fame Monster kind of coming around and doing it. I think, the thing that stuck out to me the most about why Gaga is on this list and what makes her different, because what I was trying to look at every person that was there, I was like, okay, chart success, they kind of all have that. They all have like some sort of accolade. What about you was like different to the culture? Like, what did you bring to pop music that someone else didn't? To me, Lady Gaga, it's versatility and theatricality. Like her commitment to doing her bits is something that we have not seen anyone do. I think she goes even further than Madonna did when it comes to being committed to the bit.
Oh, 100%. Something that I have here, this was something that I cooked up. It would have made a lot more sense if we were going the other way, but now we're going backwards. Something that I said is that, I talked about this more with Britney, but I said that if Britney is the blueprint for a 21st century pop star, then Gaga is the blueprint for with the blueprint of a 21st century pop star, which is so true. She is literally like the first. I mean, I think we can make a very big case for Taylor doing something with that blueprint and like changing it and like messing with it, but not in the same way that Lady Gaga did. I think that that's why even though Gaga hasn't really been like Lady Gaga in I don't even know how many years, we're still saying, oh, Chappell Roan is kind of like Lady Gaga because there's really nobody else to compare her to.
Mm-hmm.
There's only
she's a blueprint in so many ways.
She
is created a new thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And she's also, when I was looking at her career, like the chronology of her career is bizarre. Like the way that she ping pongs between things and still manages to be a relevant pop star at the end of the day. I mean, the Chromatica Ball was a stadium tour that was entirely sold out not that long ago. I reckon if she did another tour, it would sell out stadiums too, despite not having had like a really big hit in the last 4 years, I guess, other than Rain on Me. It's interesting how she like ping pongs between like, okay, I'm going to do art pop, which is insane. And then I'm going to do cheek to cheek. I'm going to do 2 years of me doing jazz in Vegas. But then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the Super Bowl. Even though like when she was doing the Super Bowl, she wasn't exactly at the height of her powers. She put out Joanne, which was a baffling creative decision to me. But this is the thing with Lady Gaga is that she makes a lot of baffling, unique, creative decisions that set her apart from other artists. Something I'll say about her is that she is not afraid to try something new and to fall flat on her face.
And that's kind of something that it's really hard to find somebody like that. It's because she's kind of like a jack of all trades in more ways than one. Like, perhaps Joanne was not the best, but that was during the same time that she was going shallow. So it's like, okay, well, she's never really flopping. Even when she should have, she always has another pot that she can go to and be like, you didn't like that? You didn't like that, Gumbo? I've got something else over here that I am cooking up that you're never going to believe. And it's true every time. She always has something in her back pocket.
And she never gets ignored. And I think that's a really good idea of her staying power is that a lot of the times, if you go too far left and you do something that people don't like, you're not going to get 10 more chances to keep doing things that people don't like. Lady Gaga gets infinite chances because she is so beloved, I think, for being herself and for being ridiculous that people accept her mistakes as part of the performance.
And not many people can get to that point. It's almost like a genius part of the Gaga brand and like the Gaga persona is like, well, she's just being Gaga. She's just doing Gaga. You don't like it? Well, I'll like the next thing she does because she's just being Gaga. I'll just let her do Gaga for a while. I say that all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like,
she's just doing her Gaga shit.
She's just doing her Gaga shit. She literally is. And I support her.
And I think, well, she also was such a, when we're talking about the mid 2000s, I would say like 2008 to 2000, let's say 2012, that 4-year period, Lady Gaga was the biggest artist in the universe. It was her and Katy Perry, and I would argue that Lady Gaga was probably a little bit bigger than Katy Perry because she had like a message behind her, a momentum. She was there when the gay rights bill was passed. It seemed like Gaga had like a higher purpose than just being a pop star all the time. And it was sweet to see something like the Born This Way Ball tour that went all around the world, having these like moments of singing to like young queer kids. Gaga was very important as a social figure too, not just as a pop star. So I think that definitely deserves a top spot on this chart.
I completely agree. Lady Gaga top 5. How can we deny it? How can we deny Lady Gaga top 5?
We love to see it, actually.
I don't deny it.
We love to see it. What we love to see even more, and I was actually very surprised pleasantly by this, is number 6, the legendary Miss Britney Spears. Britney Spears has 6 number 1 hits on the Hot 100, including Baby One More Time, Womanizer, 3, which gagged me, and Hold Me Closer with Elton John. That's a recent hit that she had, if you can believe. She has 13 top 10 singles and remains one of the few artists to achieve top 10 hits across 4 decades. This is a big part of the reason why I think she gets to go way up the list is because even in her falling off period, she is still managing to like score and get these number 1 hits. Her albums have set records when they came out. Oops, I Did It Again sold 1.3 million copies in its first week, which was history for a female artist at the time. And her magnum opus Blackout redefined electropop, and it earned a place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archive, as it should.
As it absolutely 100% should. I mean, I'll be honest. You say you're surprised that you even see Britney Spears at number 6. I was expecting top 5. I was expecting top 5. I think that I would be happy as a clam. I'd be happy as a clam if Britney and Drake switch places. That's my honest to God truth. That is my truth. 100%. It's like I said, Britney is literally the blueprint of what a pop star in the 21st century could be. So in turn, I'll give you that the numbers for Britney kind of started to fall off a little bit even as early as like 2010. You know what I mean? Like I'll give
Mhm.
you the numbers thing, but like in terms of like impact, but people still think about Britney as like the pop star 100%. And there's
And
something
if
else that
you don't, you weren't
it
there.
you weren't there. You just weren't there. I mean, in terms of like my generation, even a little bit after me, though, I would argue, like, who doesn't know who Britney Spears is? Who isn't aware of like
Well,
the
when you
impact that Britney
picture
Spears has had?
Britney, you think when you picture pop star, actually, you picture Britney with the headset mic. That is has
Exactly.
always been the image of a pop star to me.
Exactly. 100%. And something else that they said in the article is that even when record labels tried to replicate the magic of Britney Spears, they fell short because it was largely Britney incorporating her creativity and personality into her career that made the Mississippi born talent such a unique force. And I think that that is such an important nod to make because you need to know that not just anybody could have been Britney Spears. You can't just be handed the tools to be Britney and then become Britney Spears. You can't be
You
Britney Spears. So
you
much
hear
of what
one
made
note of
Britney,
her voice and
yeah,
you know that it's her.
you knew that it was Britney. You can't just make a Britney Spears. And they tried. Oh, they tried over and over and over again to make a new Britney Spears. And to this day, they haven't been able to do it.
They
To this
can't.
day,
Tate's
they
trying
can't.
and she's not doing it.
So I'm
She's
saying,
not doing it.
I'm
It can't
saying
be
6 is
done.
too low. That's my number one note for this list, I think, is that 6 is too low for Britney Spears. I'm saying she should have been top 5.
I'm with you, but I've been seeing a lot again of Britney disrespect as of late. There's a lot of clips of the Slave for You performance going viral and people saying, well, this isn't even that good. She's not even that good of a dancer. Yeah, I know. I know.
Slave.
It's shocking.
Well,
It's
listen,
shocking.
hold on, now we need to talk about this. Since we're talking about I'm
Mhm.
a Slave for You, only 4 number 1 hits silence me.
Oh, well, I know there's a reason for that. There's a reason
What do
for
you
that.
mean?
Brittany and Clear Channel, who were like kind of controlling the radio at that moment, had a dispute about her tour for Oops, I Did It Again, or one of her early
Well, this
tours, and
can't
they
be.
blacklisted her from the radio. So that meant that a lot of her big hits, like Toxic, for example, didn't chart in the top 10 because there was literally a fight between Britney's label and the people that owned what's essentially iHeartRadio now. There was a dispute. So a lot of Britney's like big hits, like Overprotected, I'm a Slave for You, we have Outrageous, we have Toxic, Me Against the Music. They didn't get the proper charting position that they should have because there was something else going on.
Well, now, because I have a whole thing about how Britney only has 4 number 1s because people hate women. And I
No,
feel like I'm riled up and I still have to do it. So
go
let's
do
pretend
it.
all that didn't happen. Everybody hates women, blah, blah, blah. This is a testament, I'm reading this, to how people hate women. When you're the first of something, like Britney was the first pop star of her kind this century, you have to take so much of the shit that your future peers will not have to take. You take the crucifixion so that others don't have to, and it's bullshit. She did not go number 1 nearly as many times as she should have because people hated women like her. Yes, I say it. Whatever information is out there, no. It doesn't matter. People hate women, etc., etc. And it's not even just about the number 1s. This is actually coming from a different place. If you think about how few VMAs Britney won, like in the early on of her career,
And yet, how many times they dragged her up on stage to do performances?
exactly. They wanted her for the views, but they weren't willing to give her the
Grammys?
accolades. Where are the
Absolutely
Grammys?
not.
Where are the Grammys? I think this is true. And I think I did make a good point. Britney was like the sacrificial lamb for everybody who was going to come after her. And I
Well,
think
also
it's really
the kind of thing
continue.
that she did made her not be taken as seriously because Christina Aguilera came up at the same time as Britney, who is nowhere to be found on this list, by the way. And because she sang in a specific kind of way and she was a virtuoso in some sort of realm that the industry understood, she was also allowed to do the crop top and shake her tummy and do Genie in a Bottle. Britney couldn't sing like that, and that was not her style. Her style was really just doing her damn Britney thing, which was good enough and deserved awards and accolades, of course. But because she didn't like play into that, it was harder for her, I think, to get any sort of credibility or acknowledgement, which is really frustrating. But with Britney, it's also she just when you look at any tour that you see now, it is so deeply inspired by performances that Britney has done, choreography that she did, and Britney herself was very inspired by Madonna and Janet Jackson. You see a lot of Janet Jackson in Britney's choreography actually, and her tone, the way that people like cite her as a reference. Charlie says that Britney is like the artist of her life. Blackout is the album. Kesha really loves her. I mean, you just can't deny that Britney is the blueprint.
Britney is the blueprint. And I'm saying it a million times. And that's why number 6 is crazy, baby. But also, this was an interesting factoid that I picked up. So Britney was the first female artist in the history of the world to sell 1 million copies in the first week of sales, which is amazing. But it's around the same time. NSYNC, this has been overtaken by Adele for the record, but NSYNC for a long time had the highest selling album of all time with 2.4 million records sold. It's like NSYNC outsold Britney by double, and has history reflected that?
Does anyone care? Did anyone move?
History has not reflected that the way that history reflects Britney. So I just think it's really, really interesting to think about the way that people thought about Britney then as compared to how we think about Britney now. Everything we just said. Just like, it's like Van Gogh.
She's the icon.
Britney
She's
is like
legend.
Mozart. She's Van Gogh. They didn't appreciate her in her time. But I'll tell you right now, number 6, baby.
Totally. And I think a lot of it also gets lost to the turmoil that she's been going through for the last couple of years. It's kind of easier for people to write her off as a has-been because she's not actively in the music industry anymore. But look around, baby. Look at Tate McRae. Britney influence,
you just killed
alive
me
and
saying
well.
Has been the way Nicki Minaj says it in Roman's Revenge. Has been. Hang it up. Flat screen.
There you go. The Nickiologist spoke through. Number 7 on this list. Cricket. It is someone that you may know as Kanye West.
Know him?
Yep.
I like how they insist on calling him Kanye West. It's like, well yes. We're not going to play that game. We're not going to play that game.
Let's do your God-given name. Let's do that.
So this, I don't have a lot in my notes about him. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, absolutely he had to be on the list. I mean, how are you going to argue that he couldn't be? And I don't think anybody is really arguing with the point that I think he was one of the most visionary creatives, like, I think of my lifetime. Ever. Yeah. He was probably one of the most fascinating artists. He had so much talent, and like he made a lot of really amazing music. So it's like I totally, number 7, I have no problem with that. I don't think this is denying anything that he's ever said, and the article goes out of its way to go all into that and get totally into it. So I thought that was great that they kind of like took like a full picture. But I mean, how are you gonna say anything else but sure?
Yeah, but sure, Jan, that's really what it is. Yeah. I mean, it's also, it's sad to see what has become of such a visionary talent, because it didn't have to be like that. And Kanye would for sure be in Drake's spot if he didn't do half of the shit that he had done. I think, Kanye is, like you said, a bit of a visionary. He has a lot of critical acclaim. He has 21 Grammys. 21 Grammys. And he kind of deserves them all. I mean, he again helped bring like rap and hip hop and pop all together, blending the genres, breaking conventions, setting trends with the blueprint, the emotional depth of 808s and heartbreaks. Can we really deny that?
Not me. I won't deny it. Graduation. Mm-mm. Some people were there.
College Dropout. Homecoming? I mean, there are just so many iconic Kanye West albums, but yeah, that does not it's sad to see that his legacy has been, in my opinion, like just eroded by the nonsense.
Yeah. It's really hard to talk about him without talking about everything else. And it's like, okay, so you just like shot, it's kind of like J.K. Rowling. Okay, so now your legacy is ruined forever because you had to die on a stupid hill. Okay, great.
Yeah. Well done. Congratulations. You ruined it for yourself and for everyone else. Now, number 8, and this decision is the one that I have the biggest quabble with. This is the one that I'm most kind of whatever about. This is Justin Bieber.
The Bieber. So his fans are really, really upset about him being at number 8 and not any higher.
I saw that and said, count your lucky stars.
That's kind of how I felt about it too. Like, I guess it's only a testament to how hard he hasn't really moved significantly in the past 3-4 years. Now he's a father. He's doing his thing with Haley, which I think is great. But it's like, okay, so you guys are still riding this hard for Justin. You want to see him where? Top 5? You really want to see Justin top 5? Okay, I'm gonna let you
really
rock.
Think that he has that impact? You seriously think that he has had that sustained of an impact? And that's the other thing to consider in this. Like when we're looking at things, someone might say, "Oh, Britney Spears hasn't had a sustained impact." Did you hear that? Top 10 hits across 4 decades. Justin Bieber don't have that.
Justin Bieber don't have that. The thing that I will give the bone to Justin Bieber about is that he was like the original YouTube kid turned into a superstar. Like the OG social media. Now all of a sudden I'm the number one. I feel like that's a huge part of the reason why he got to like this point on the list is they were like, well, this is a 21st century. And what's something more representative of the 21st century than a kid from YouTube becoming Justin Bieber at like a Beatlemania like level. So that is the only thing that I can really give it to. I mean, he's Justin Bieber, but it's like, this is a little high. This is a
Bieber
little high.
Is the only reason why he's there. And I understand and appreciate that like what happened with social media and how it catapulted him to like this new stratosphere of stardom was interesting and was groundbreaking, and certainly also launched a long line of copycats. Shawn Mendes, Austin Mahone, we see you trying to do the Justin Bieber thing. And the thing that lets me down with Justin is that I don't think the artistic integrity is there. Justin Bieber to me is not a particularly impactful artist culturally. He's had a couple of moments where I think he moved culture with like Sorry and What Do You Mean and Despacito. Those songs kind of like introduced new sounds into the mainstream. But apart from that one isolated era, I'm not seeing like from Justice, that era, like what was different there? What was the big hit? His early music was teeny bopper stuff. Like this isn't great, good music. This isn't Britney Spears' first album levels of good pop. It's like Disney pop. One Time, Eeny Meeny, One Less Lonely Girl. These aren't, to me, classic songs. And that is where I'm kind of like, having Justin Bieber at number 8 and Ariana Grande at number 9 does not make sense. They need to be switched.
No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. This just isn't right.
Baby is not a good song.
This isn't right.
Baby was mocked
Baby also,
routinely.
It didn't go number 1. I did not know that. I was like, so sure.
I
Baby
didn't know that
1.
either.
It did not go number 1. A lot of his number ones are from this side of the century, which is crazy to me. They're all like, they're not from like 2008, 2009. They're all from like 2012, 13, 14, 15. Like Where Are You Now? All those kind of songs. I was like, really? Okay, well there you go.
Well,
I did not realize that.
That was when he was doing the I'm sorry for being an evil little troll boy, and now I'm good and better, and I'm going to marry Hailey Bieber. And to that I say congratulations, but I just don't. It's interesting that on this chart there are 3 kind of entries that describe similar phenomenons, which we'll get into later. But to me, it's Justin Bieber, BTS, and One Direction. And Justin Bieber being this high does not feel right to me. I think Ariana Grande, when I saw her at number 9, I was like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong.
Oh, this is wrong. Crime against humanity. It is. No, Drake and Justin Bieber, it's not them being on the list. I want to be clear. It's their placements that I take issue with. And those are like my 2 main. I would tweak those a little bit if I had my say.
Well, all right, let's speak about Ariana Grande, number 9. Did you know that all 6 of her albums went number 1, starting with the debut?
I did. I discovered that. 1. I viewed the infographic and I said, wow. Even My Everything, which is impressive. My Everything going number 1 impressed
yours
me.
Truly going number 1 was the impressive thing to me. That had like 1 song on it. The Way, like a good big song.
With Mac Miller? Oh, we were there. We were
Great
there.
song.
I was there.
Great song.
Yeah. I can still see the music video behind my eyes.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
And the budget was $1, and
they made that dollar feel like $1 million. They made that dollar feel like $1 million.
They had balloons, they had a projector, and they had a dream. So she has 7 Billboard Hot 100 number 1 hits, including smashes such as Thank You Next, 7 Rings, and Positions. I was like, smashes, positions. Interesting.
I was impressed with the fact that she went 1, 2, 3 with 7 Rings, Break Up With Your Girlfriend, and Thank You Next when that record came out. It was number 1, 7 Rings, number 2, Break Up With Your Girlfriend, number 3,
Thank You Next was her first number 1 hit, which is crazy. Ariana had such bad luck. She'd been blocked so many times, like No Tears Left to Cry. I think that was blocked by Old Town Road or something like that. There were several huge Ariana Grande songs, kind of like Britney, that just didn't make it to that top spot. But you know, she is one of the biggest streaming artists. I think she reminds me of Rihanna and the effect she's had on popular culture. The Ariana Grande look, the high ponytail, all of that was very, very influential.
I totally agree with you. And actually, I saw this crazy TikTok of like girls like, oh my God, Ariana Grande is on my screen. I hate Ariana Grande. And then all of a sudden they start like slowly becoming Ariana Grande. And it's so crazy how simple it is to recognize the Ariana Grande look. A high pony, your sweater's hanging off your shoulder.
Off the shoulder.
You start going, yeah. It's like
Thigh high
Ariana is like,
boots.
yep, it's very recognizable as like a persona and as a brand, which is pretty hard to do actually.
And she has a lot of like
Especially with,
colloquialisms, yeah, that are
yeah,
very recognizably Ariana Grande.
getting referenced in like Doja Cat songs. Like you're gonna yut like Ariana, and everybody knows exactly what you
hmm
mean. I mean, hello, are you hearing
She
this?
has probably the most successful celebrity perfume line as of late. That's an art that was lost, but Ariana Grande has not lost it. That's the Fenty Beauty of the perfume industry.
Some of us are there at the perfume counter, and
Oh,
we're buying Sweet Like Candy. I am. It's one
Sweet
of my
Like
favorite
Candy is an
perfumes.
interesting choice to buy.
It's not for
that's
me, baby.
that's the
Not for
original
me.
one.
I
That's
love
the
it.
original one.
I love Sweet Like Candy.
I think also Ariana, has the parasocialism of it all with her hero's journey has been very interesting, like with Mac Miller's death and the Manchester bombing and her various engagements falling apart. It has been, I think people have had a lot of goodwill towards Ariana throughout her career. And I don't know, I think it's very difficult to say that a Justin Bieber, because if you really think about the time that he was very
Mm.
active, it was probably from 2010 till when did Purpose come out? 2015, 2016? That's when he was very, very relevant. Ariana came out in 2013 and has been pretty steadily, she reminds me of Rihanna in that way, consistently popular and famous since then. So to me, I'm like, if we're looking at time spent in the 21st century, more of that has had Ariana Grande at a center of a conversation versus Justin Bieber, who headlined Coachella and invited the other person out. Ariana headlined Coachella and brought Justin Bieber out. Huh.
It's funny how
Interesting.
that works. It's really funny and interesting how that works. Speaking of people who brought the other one out, I I think that Ariana has something really similar to Miley, in that
Mm-hmm.
like Ariana was a child star on a kids television show and she broke out into superstardom. It was kind of like plagued a bit by scandal and controversy and like high profile relationships, just the same as Miley. But I even though I find Ariana and Miley very similar in a lot of ways, I still kind of agree with Ariana's decently higher placement on the list than
Oh,
Miley,
for sure.
because Ariana really does have the numbers.
And she's an
Like,
artiste. Not that Miley's not talented, but Ariana definitely has more, I would say, of an investment in her musical output than Miley does.
yeah, I would have to agree with that. They do, interestingly enough, have the same number of Grammys. They both have 2 Grammys. There you go.
Wow.
That many
We
such
needed to
cases.
know that. We
Many
needed
such
to know
cases.
that. Number 10, and I was surprised. I thought this was a little bit low, is Adele, because her commercial success is cuckoo bananas. 4 Billboard Hot 100 number 1 hits, Rolling in the Deep, and Hello, heard of it, with 3 consecutive Billboard 200 number 1 albums, 21, 25, and 30. She also has like 85 million Grammys. Her albums have sold like millions and millions of copies. I was surprised to see her at number 10.
I was also surprised. I think I would have been more comfortable with her at like a 7 or an 8. I think that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's Adele. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, it's not necessarily just about like the numbers and the charts and the Grammys and all that. It's like, at a certain point, it's like, we're talking about Adele.
Well, she's universal.
Adele?
She's
Adele?
worldwide. She's for children
Heard
and
of
for
her?
moms.
Something that the article pointed out that I thought was so true about like what it is about Adele that really makes Adele Adele. Adele's like timeless. When
Mm-hmm.
she came out at the same time as Katy Perry and like all this
Yeah.
other specific kind of pop music, and Adele stood alone. And it's like Rolling in the Deep. If you compare that to a song like, I don't know, California Girls, which one sounds dated to you? It's not Rolling in the Deep. I'll tell you that for free. So it's like she has like forever longevity, like for all
Mm-hmm.
time. And then she's number 10. I just found it kind of interesting. Like, no, she doesn't have like, oh, you know, a million number 1 hits, but it's like, well, some of us think that she's Adele. She doesn't put out as much as other artists. That's the thing. Like, that's kind of
That's
the
another
difference.
thing they seem to reward a lot in this list was prolificness of your output. Like how
Yeah.
much are you releasing? And you'll notice that the top 4, Drake, Rihanna, Taylor, and Beyonce have at one point or another been hyper productive in ways that artists on this list haven't. And I guess that's what you need to do to secure that kind of chart dominance is you have to be present. And I mean, I think Adele's motive is to be very considered and thoughtful with her projects, not to, be a singles artist or a features artist. And I admire that. Do I think the quality is kept up from every record? Well, no. But I think that her approach makes sense and it works for her. And I do think, yeah, that she's building a timeless discography that people will want to listen to forever. And she's not that present in culture. I think that probably is more the issue when you're talking about like the top pop stars. What did Adele really change about culture? She just reminded us that we like sad songs, which is a good reminder.
We needed
what did
to know
she
that.
change?
We needed to remind that. There was a time where she was like in skits on SNL and stuff like that. You're going to be like, oh, play a sad song. Chances are you're going to play Someone Like You.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she became synonymous with that kind of music, which is good.
Crying to Adele.
Yeah.
She was a meme. She definitely was a meme in that period of time. And I think also there was something very charming about her being British and everybody like thinking that she was really funny. So there was that. But again, when I'm looking at the cultural impact beyond just like music, I'm not really seeing her as a pop star. But
I thought it was really interesting. At one point in the article, they were like, oh, you know, she's been like tabloid fodder forever. And it's like, has she been?
Who?
I don't know anything about her life.
About?
And
I'm not caring.
We don't need to know. I'm happy to not know. Adele, keep your secret. I don't need to know anything.
Let that lady mind her business.
Yep.
Number 11, we have Usher. Madeline, would you like to explain to us why Usher is in this position?
Well, I'm saying he should be in top 10. Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying he really needs to be in the top 10. I'm very surprised to see him at number 11. To me, if we're talking 21st century, he is the male king of R&B to this day. He was in 2000, 2001, 2002, all the way up to 2024. Did you know that his Super Bowl halftime show was the most watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time? That's not just something they made. And when he was going on the Super Bowl and everybody was saying that, like, why is Usher doing it? He's so irrelevant. Usher? Irrelevant? U-S-H-E-R? Usher Raymond the Third? Irrelevant? Not in my house. Mm-hmm. Not in my house. No.
And yet they sang along the entire time.
And they knew all the words. And when he got his roller skates on, they were clapping and cheering and they were on their feet. I was too.
They were.
I cried like a baby at the Usher halftime show. But to be fair, I'm very moved by live music, particularly the halftime show. I'll cry about anything.
Well, it's a momentous occasion, yeah.
It's a momentous occasion.
It's a big deal.
Usher should be higher up on the list. I mean, it's like, I don't really... If I'm thinking about it and I'm being like more critical, it's like, who are you gonna bump? Well, I'd bump Justin Bieber.
Yeah, easily. Adele, take her
out. So I would move Usher up. I just think that he has so many, and across like he managed to kind of like take that early 2000s Y2K R&B, and then he got into that
in love again.
Club, yeah, that kind of thing, and then he got into DJ Got Us Fallen in Love Again. He really managed to chameleon with all these different kinds of music and still somehow managed to maintain like the classic brand of Usher.
Yeah.
So I think he's a lot more impressive than a lot of people, and I'd also like to say a lot of these people that people really look up to, like for example Jungkook or any of these K-pop boys, or really any of the big male pop stars that you can think of, including Justin Bieber. Where do you think?
Oh, and Usher was Justin Bieber's mentor. He was his mentor.
Lest we forget.
And that's when Justin Bieber was in his bag, was when he was doing the Usher stuff, when he was actually dancing and singing and putting effort into his performances. That is when he was kind of in his bag, when he was doing the Usher thing.
Personally, I would go Joker if I was Usher and I saw my mentee get higher up on the list than me. That would turn me into the Joker. And if Usher wanted to go Joker, I would support him. I would support him 100%. Do it.
Confessions sold 10 million copies and had 4 Hot 100 number 1 hits in 1 year. In a year.
And where were you? These are my confessions. I thought I said all I had to say, but then my chick on the side said she got one on the way. Where were you? I was there in the room.
Many people weren't. I have to say I'm not super familiar with Usher because it was just not played in Singapore when I would have been the age that it would have made sense for me to really be into it. So the first time I remember being very aware of him was Yeah. And then the second time I remember being very aware of him was DJ Got Us Falling in Love Again, which went number 1 in my house.
when he goes, eyes, eyes, eyes.
Eyes.
I was there. It takes me to the club. Mm-hmm.
But the sidebar, I think, part of the reason perhaps maybe why he's further down this list is because his last major Hot 100 hit was in 2014 at number 65. So he hasn't had like a very relevant moment in about 10 years. And that I think would bring you down a little bit more versus someone like Britney, who also technically hasn't really been that active in the last 10 years, but had a number 1 hit in that period of time. I would imagine this is how Billboard is like somewhat calculating the people that aren't directly relevant at this moment.
I would like to see the spreadsheet. Not that I'm saying they did anything wrong, but I'm really curious to see, like, because there's a lot of factors to consider, and in general, I think they were considered fairly well. So I want to see who's in the room, what the spreadsheet looks like.
I want to see the formula.
That's like something that I would really love to do is to be on the panel of the Billboard.
You want to be in the Grammy. You want to be in the Academy.
Well, I am in the Academy. I've told you that before. I've told you that. I'm infiltrating from the inside. Yes, exactly. Of the Snammies. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We are the secret screening committee. We are the pop category committee. We are the country committee. We are everything.
We're everything. We're everywhere.
So we're so Julia. And to that we say, thank you, Usher. Number 12, we have loser of the year, loser of this podcast, loser of the show, Eminem.
Well, listen, here's the thing. This is me booing. It's
Boo.
true. Like, here's the thing. It is just the truth. But I will boo anyway. This is what people think.
Exactly.
But
we're not arguing, but we're booing.
I'm gonna boo. I will boo. I will boo until the cows come home.
For the misogyny, for the homophobia, for the deranged behavior.
And that's all there is
Riddle
to
me
it.
this. Do you think Eminem is very talented?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I think that this is something that has been people in hip hop. I don't consider myself to be some hip hop aficionado where I get to decide who is or isn't. You know what I'm saying? But it's like people in hip hop. He's been named like in the top 5 rappers of all time multiple times by people who know a lot more about this than I do.
By people like Kendrick Lamar,
and also he kind of writes crazy pop hooks. Like back in the day, some of his hooks, I still remember them today. I haven't sat and listened to an Eminem song, and I can't even tell you why. Yeah, even like a song like "When I'm Gone," even cleaning out my closet. The hook on "Cleaning Out My Closet" is crazy. So I mean,
I'm blessed to say I've never heard that song. I'm blessed to say
you've
that
never
that's
heard
not
"Cleaning
part
Out
of
My Closet."
Life.
Oh,
I don't
man.
listen. I've not listened.
You didn't have an older brother. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that for free.
An older brother would have loved that. I had a friend that I used to see in the summer who would listen to it, and I would literally make him turn it off and put Britney Spears' Dream Within a Dream tour on.
I found a lot of the stuff that they said about him interesting. I don't think about Eminem. This is kind of something that I really like about listicles is that I don't think about Eminem. I don't think about his impact. I don't think about that kind of stuff. So it was interesting to read this. So they said, ironically, it was Eminem's extremely anti-pop energy in his early days that made him the perfect pop star for the moment. The early 90s had largely been defined by Seattle-based grunge and LA-based G-funk, but the late 90s, those genres had largely run their course in the mainstream, and their sonic and thematic heaviness was largely replaced by upbeat, kid-friendly, occasionally brilliant megapop that nonetheless left a lot of still pissed-off young folks desperate for a darker, more skeptical alternative. So it's like the climate was literally set up for Eminem to come out. Also, it was set up for that skid mark Fred Durst to come out too. So maybe in evil was unleashed
this is the
upon
context
world.
into which Woodstock 99 emerged. This is the exact condition that created both of those two artists as well, or facilitated it. Not a good vibe, not something that anybody liked to experience. But I mean, it has to be said, something also about Eminem that I think is interesting and puts him on this list is that his work sparked a lot of conversations about free speech, about art, about what's acceptable. A lot of our conversations now about, I think, cultural appropriation and also how men speak about women, particularly in hip hop and rap. Those conversations were really started because of Eminem. I'm not saying that he contributed good things to those conversations, but I'm saying that the work was a jumping off point.
He was also just like a tabloid fodder guy. Like everything that he did was a headline because he was
taking shots at everybody.
He was gross and he was like nasty. And that's all there is to it.
My response really is stream obsessed by Mariah Carey to this placement.
And I think, and you know what? That music video is probably one of the coldest drags of Eminem you'll ever see. No rap battle. No rap battle, no bar could ever do to Eminem what Mariah Carey did to Eminem with the Obsessed music video, and I think that she deserves a Grammy.
That is the power of
for
being
what
a pop
she did
girl.
that day. Yeah,
pop girls do clapbacks in a way that no one else can, and nobody appreciates that.
And that's on that.
Speaking of clapbacks, up next, will you all get up on your good foot for Nicki Minaj at number 13?
You know what? Nicki Minaj. And I said this earlier already.
Let's start with that. We are barbs.
We are barbs.
I'm a barb.
We are barbs.
Madeline's a barb. I'm a barb. Okay.
I said this earlier already. It's really awesome that right now we're in a time where there's a lot of female rap stars to emulate and to look up to, and they're making such amazing music. But there was a time in my generation, like, yes, I was aware of Lil' Kim. I knew who Eve was. Missy Elliott is amazing, but it's like when I was coming up in middle school, when I was listening to a lot of hip hop, it was Nicki Minaj. It was Nicki Minaj, and there was nobody else.
And
It
who
was
was doing
Nicki.
it like her? Pink Friday.
Nobody.
Pink
The verse
Friday
that she
is
did on
one of the
Monster,
crazy.
it's one of the greatest rap verses of all time. You can't tell me anything.
Man or woman.
They'll try to say it's fake. I know
They've
what
silenced. Nicki has silenced us.
I know what I heard.
I mean, Pink Friday is the blueprint for pop rap, I think, for like bubblegum pop rap. And Nicki did something so different. I think she brought like, I think a lot of like being a female rapper before was about really trying to like squeeze yourself into like a man's perspective of like how you should be or what kind of music you should make. Nicki Minaj was like unapologetically the Barbie. She was like, I'm going to wear my wigs. I'm going to wear my gowns. I'm going to serve CUNT every single day of the week. And I'm going to make fun pop music that little kids like to dance to. And inside of that, I'm going to put the craziest bars that you've ever heard in your entire life. And everybody's going to love it.
I am not Jasmine. I am Aladdin. Is one of the craziest things. I think I remember listening to that for the first time and being like silent. As at like 15, mind you. Imagine being 15 and hearing that for the first time. You can't even fathom that.
You want to talk about female rage? Rah, rah.
Like a dungeon dragon. It's so crazy. That was the thing I really loved about Nicki. Is that she was crazy. I mean, still is.
And she's hard. Like
yeah.
it wasn't just that she did that pop silly thing. She really, the thing that I respect a lot about Nicki Minaj and what I think is her cultural impact is she understood that I want to be a pop star. I don't just want to do rap, but I never want to lose that because that's my artistry, that's my skill, that's what I'm really good at. But I want to find a way to blend that with what's popular in pop music so that I can be even bigger and better than any other female rapper was before me. And so that I can give myself the space to, because if you listen to her records, like, yeah, a lot of them, even the pop influenced ones, you go deep inside. On a record like Queen, when you get to something like Good Form, hello.
That's so crazy. Even Chun-Li.
Oh.
Chun-Li has a hook.
That's the pop song, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes crazy.
Yeah.
And she just, I mean, her ability to drive cultural conversations, she really became a meme as well. All of her various facial reactions and things that she said on the Ellen show, I'm not your parents, she said to people who were concerned about her. The Easter Bunny video is one of my favorite videos of all time.
What's the Easter Bunny video?
She's sitting in the chair and she has to read these lines about celebrating an Easter egg hunt. And she's clearly like high and she cannot stop laughing. She's like literally cry laughing and being like, it's an Easter egg hunt. And then starts bawling her eyes out. It's hilarious.
I need to watch that.
Send that to you.
I need to watch
so
that.
Good.
That sounds delicious. I love stuff like that.
Also a major features artist, someone who understood the power of collaborating with other people. She was always on my radar. Even if I wasn't listening to a Nicki Minaj album, she was in my sphere of influence because she was collaborating with Beyonce. Hello. She was collaborating with Ariana Grande, side to side. Ariana and Nicki have done some incredible work together. Justin Bieber,
really have.
Kanye. Oh, yeah. She was beloved both by pop stars and the biggest rappers. Like she was really well respected for her craft.
Yes, and she was everywhere. She was everywhere.
Ate Jay-Z up on his own song.
Many such cases, by the way. Nicki Minaj is always eating people up on their own songs. I mean, what's the most memorable thing about Beauty and a Beat by Justin Bieber? It has to be Selena.
Got to keep an eye out for Selena.
You have to keep your eye out for Selena.
And you do.
At all
I'm
times.
Still doing it to this day.
I'm still doing it to this day. I can never stop looking out for Selena.
Hailey
Thank
Bieber
you,
also. Keeping an eye out for Selena. And also, you know what else she did? I think Nicki Minaj took stan culture to another level because of the relationship that she formed with her barbs.
With her barbs. Well, she was one of the first people. I remember when I was listening to, again, the Monsterverse, and she said, my money's so tall that my Barbie's got to climb it. I was like, what is she talking about? Like Barbie dolls? No, her fans. Mm-hmm. There was a fourth wall break that was like unlike something that I had heard at that point. To reference your own fans in a song and to shout them out like that is like, not something you heard of at the time. I don't even think people do it now? Is Tate
This
getting
was
on the mic and
also-
going, "This is to my tater tots"? Well, no.
This was also when it was $50K for a verse, no album out. Like there was no
Yeah.
album, and she still had the barbs.
So let me get this straight. Wait, I'm the rookie?
And the barbs do a lot of legwork for Nicki. Part of why Nicki is so successful is because the barbs ride hard for her
Well, they get up on their good foot at all times for Nicki.
all times.
All
They have
times.
2 good feet, actually.
Yeah, they have 2 very good feet.
I'm going to have to also just stop my commentary on the barbs there because I am a barb.
And that's all you need to know. And that's all you need to know, baby.
Who's up next, Madeline?
So up next at number 14, we have Justin Timberlake. And my comment here, it says, this is a little too high up there on the list, but it is annoying and true at the same time. I gotta tell you something. I've said this a million times. Justified is one of the most evergreen records of its time. That record is crazy. I hear it. It still gets played today, and I hear it, and I go, this is contemporary music. This is contemporary music. Yeah.
Girls.
That's not just something they made.
That was Timberland, right? Like that was when he was really in his Timberland bag.
Yes. And yep.
Everything.
Everything.
I think, this is actually making me mad because I'm thinking about Justin Bieber now, who's way higher up on this list. And I'm thinking about how he had so many different kind of models of stardom, or his people had so many different models to choose from to make him an interesting artist. And the Usher model, they kind of leaned into a little bit, but not musically. The Justin Timberlake model, why were they not following that? Justin Bieber could have easily done something Justin Timberlake-esque, and yet they gave him slop.
That's actually very interesting. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to that. I feel like Justin Timberlake,
because it was a product and it was selling and they didn't care about quality. Really,
Right.
That's how I feel with Justin Bieber. They were like, it's selling, so we actually don't need to focus on making this good. But Justin Timberlake, when he went to create Confessions, clearly had a vision in mind. It wasn't just, this is my debut pop boy album. It was like, I'm an artist.
Well, what's really, really interesting about Justin Timberlake, and I don't think anybody can ever take this away from him, is that it is really, really hard to break out of a band and do your own thing and go solo. Almost nobody today thinks of him as, oh, he used to be an NSYNC. They think of him as Justin Timberlake. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people walking around out there today who are unaware of the roots.
I was unaware.
When
I was younger, I was unaware. I didn't know NSYNC, so I just knew Justin Timberlake.
So he's to manage to extricate yourself from that kind of an image. I mean, it's easier for men. You know what I mean? It's easier to break out of the I'm the boy next door thing and then become like a sex symbol. Exactly. They're not bandmates also as like held down as like women are. So like, I mean, not to give him too much credit or anything, but it is hard. It's surprising looking back now to think that it was him. Of all, I think it's his relationship with Britney Spears really helped him, because the tea is that JC was the leader of NSYNC and he wrote a lot of NSYNC's music. Like a lot of NSYNC's biggest hits were written by JC. So it's kind of surprising.
And also when you watch them perform, it's not like Justin Timberlake is the center of the performance. He's just kind of there being hot and cute. And that's good for him. But he also globbed off of Britney Spears a lot. That was actually a very intentional thing that he did. He deliberately knew that dating Britney Spears, who was much bigger than he was and had released better music than he had at that point, he knew that by association, he would find success. So that was a smart thing to do. I think the second record, Future Sex Love Sounds, was also pretty great, capitalizing off of that, like, white men doing Timberland production songs. He was very
we were cheering
into that. We were cheering for it, and he loved it. Sexy Back.
Oh, that song, the thing about Sexy Back, this is more about Timbaland than it is really about Justin. There is no song like Sexy Back.
It's freaky.
It's unique. It is singular. I heard it like a couple weeks ago on the radio and I was like, this song is crazy. It's insane. It's like ahead of its time.
At all is crazy. What goes around comes around.
The man's a genius.
We got you. We got your eye on you. He also did 4 Minutes with Madonna and Justin Timberlake. Great song.
That song is crazy.
Great song. So I mean, I would say his period, again, of eligibility for being an icon really was from, if you're not counting NSYNC, from 2002 with Justified to 2013 with the 2020 Experience, which to me felt like him moving more in like a Michael Bublé / Bruno Mars direction. And I was like, oh, so you don't want to be cool anymore. And that's a curse. When you go dad, you can't go back.
You really can't. Once the dad has been shown, you can't unshow the dad. You really can't.
When you're in your suit and tie, it's done for you.
Something that's interesting, this baffled me. So they said that he had 6 number ones, and only one of those was with NSYNC this century. But where the hell was Bye Bye Bye? Bye 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 went number 1 in the year 2000. I think they're missing one.
Wow.
You're gonna
Flops.
tell me
Don't even know their own charts.
you don't even know Bye Bye Bye? I find that interesting.
What's crazy to me is the 2020 Experience is his most commercially successful album to date, with 968,000 copies sold in its first week in 2013. That's crazy.
That's impressive. I didn't know that. That's very impressive.
I remember the tour being a big thing, and Mirrors, that's a good song. Mirrors is a good song,
you know what they loved? Do you remember when he did the music video with Scarlett Johansson? That was such a big deal.
Oh, yeah,
that was one of the first music videos I remembered being long. When I was a kid, I was like, why is this so long?
I think around this time he did a movie. He was like becoming kind of like a star in a different way. But, you know, the fall from grace has been so astronomical. And I have to think that, like, when you really look at Justin Timberlake's discography, all of the excellence is to do with the producers that he has worked with. Like, he himself is not a very competent songwriter or producer, and that is evidenced by the slop that he has released subsequently.
Well, it was the same thing with NSYNC. It was the same thing with NSYNC. JC, I know you, and I saw what you did. Some of us remember.
Justin Timberlake, Dr. Swag.
Yeah, 100%. And that's all there is to
I think Justin Timberlake, honestly, too high, to be honest.
I think too high. I mean, I love, Justified and Future Sex Love Sounds, great albums, but it's like,
that's a period of like 6 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
Moving on. 15. Now, I am surprised that Miley Cyrus made it onto this list. I am surprised because her output is not that prolific and her charting history is not that strong. But what I forgot was Hannah Montana, a little cultural phenomenon, an iconic moment in history called Hannah Montana. And when you put Hannah Montana into the equation, of course it makes sense that Miley dominated parts of this century, I suppose. I mean, Hannah Montana came out in 2006, 2007, and those soundtracks were on the charts. The second Hannah Montana soundtrack, 325,000 copies in its first week, number 1. See You Again was her first top 10 hit, and that was in 2007. Taylor Swift didn't have a top 10 hit in 2007. She didn't.
And I think we should have that conversation.
She didn't.
And I think we should have that conversation. You're catching strays all the way up here with Miley. That's right. That's
you really
right.
have to. Then we had 7 Things, Party in the USA, which peaked at number 2. Like, Miley's reign of, I think, her imperial phase before Bangers, I guess, was really quite intense and impressive, and certainly transcended a child star. She was already being treated like a pop star when she was like 16.
The thing about Miley that really strikes me, and thinking about like taking into account like her unquantifiable facets of her career, I just think that Miley is like a star. I don't know about the pop part, like, you know, the numbers and the charts and all that. I guess you could argue that, but like, she has an X factor, and she's had it since like day one. Yeah, she's just like a star. She's always been in the papers.
The most charismatic person in the world.
She's just a star. And it's like, I don't really know if that's what they were taking into account in the Billboard offices when they made this, but like that's why I think that 15 is okay. I'm like, I'm all right with Miley being there because she is a star.
It makes sense to me. I mean, Bangers is her most commercially successful album, debuted at number 1. That had 270,000 copies sold in its first week. We had a number 1 hit, her first number 1 hit, actually, with Wrecking Ball. We Can't Stop, Found Nowhere. Plastic Hearts was, I guess, her next most commercially successful album. And it's important to note there's a 7-year gap between Bangers and Plastic Hearts. And Plastic Hearts, to me, it didn't go number 1.
Some of us
It's not bad. It's not bad. But it also made her the first female artist to achieve top 10 entries on the Billboard 200, the albums chart, across 3 decades, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. So to that, we have to say,
we have to
congratulations. Cheer. It's been surpassed, but she did it. She did it. In 2023, Endless Summer Vacation debuted at number 3. That's interesting. I wonder there must have been a big release that week, because coming at number 3 is strange to me.
Well,
and then she had Flowers. Now, I think without Endless Summer Vacation and the phenomenon that was Flowers and the Grammys, I don't think Miley would be on the list.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think you might be right about that. Endless Summer Vacation, I think, was a really pivotal point. It's hard to know because hindsight hasn't really kicked in yet. I think Endless Summer Vacation was really pivotal for Miley's career. I think she really needed that moment. I definitely think she did.
She needed the number 1 hit.
Mama loves some Endless Summer Vacation. I turn that on in the summer, baby. I'm happy as a clam. So
I'm
I
sorry that
love
you're
that
jaded.
album. And it was one of the first recent Miley records that I was like, I feel like I'm really seeing a Miley moment and not just
Yeah.
like, let me try this. It actually felt like,
Mm-hmm.
this is Miley. You know what I mean? I really
Yeah.
like that record for Miley.
There's plenty on it to mine. Number 16, we have husband of Beyonce, Jay-Z.
Now, this is so interesting because he was the first hip hop artist that I saw on the list where I genuinely thought, well, is he really a pop star? But then they answered that question for me with their blurb when they said Jay-Z raised the ceiling on hip hop's impact within 21st century popular music and proved rappers could be pop stars without ever explicitly going pop. And I said, well, okay, I'm seeing the vision.
I'll let you cook.
I'm seeing the vision. I'm seeing the vision. And they went into this whole thing about comparing him to the Porsche 911, which I thought was really interesting. And that they open it by saying the best is not always the best selling. And I was like, some people need to hear that.
Interesting. That is
some
interesting.
people need to hear it. Well, he has been named the best rapper of all time by Billboard. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Did you know that? Jay-Z,
No,
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He is somebody that, like, he doesn't have these, like, he's not like Drake, like 388 entries, but he's somebody who's, like, impactful in, like, a different way in hip-hop. Reading about him was really interesting because, honestly, I do only kind of know him as the husband of Beyonce. And yeah. I think that's okay. But I do have respect for him and, like, what he's done. And, like, he turned himself into an enterprise. And, like, he's a businessman. He's a mogul. And I think he's done it very, very successfully. And
I'm still not convinced that he's a pop star. Even after all of this, I'm still not convinced that when I put him with the other rappers that are pop stars here, the only reason why I think Jay-Z has the status of a pop star is because he's married to Beyonce. Like, I think the business stuff is kind of behind the scenes. It's not things that people really pay attention to. To me, he's like one of those rappers for rappers in that he's so influential in every creative decision that he makes has reverberated throughout the industry that it's impossible to not cite him as a reference. But I just don't know that I consider him a pop star.
Interesting. Well, it's one of those words that's like really hard to
quantify because it is subjective.
It is subjective.
It technically just means popular. Jay-Z is popular.
Absolutely. So I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it. I like where he is. I really liked reading the article about him. It was really interesting. I didn't know all this stuff about it. I didn't know that Kanye West was his producer. And that's how they met. Like early producer. I did not know that. And that's how they, kind of became friends and knew each other for a long time. And then went on to make Watch the Throne.
Huge moment.
Which is Iconery. Huge moment. So that was, I did not know that.
At number 17 on the list, we have Shakira. Shakira is, I think, a groundbreaking artist, and this is what Billboard had to say about that. Her groundbreaking bilingual album, Laundry Service, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 in 2001, propelled by hits like Whenever, Wherever, one of the greatest songs of all time, and its follow-up, Oral Fixation, made history as the first all-Spanish album to debut in the Billboard 200's top 5, reaching number 4. Sorry, that was... I can't speak Spanish. I'm not going to try and say that. The Spanish language version. Then she did Oral Fixation Volume 2 in 2005, which was the English language counterpart. Ever heard of a little song called Hips Don't Lie?
Some of us live in Hips Don't Lie.
Some of us one of the best-selling singles of all time. And she... In general, Shakira has sold over 95 million records, 14 number one hits on Billboard's Hot Latin Songs chart, and she has had significant crossover success. Hips Don't Lie, as we mentioned, Waka Waka, Beautiful Liar with Beyonce, hugely underrated collaboration and song.
So good. So good.
We should have had that at the Super Bowl. We really should have had that at the Super Bowl.
What happened to that? What happened to that? What happened to Beautiful Liar? I'm asking you. I think that Shakira is a little too low. I recognize that, okay, maybe she doesn't have all these number one hits, this, that, and the other thing, but I think she should at least be above Justin Timberlake, don't you? I think she should at least be above Justin Timberlake.
Absolutely. She's still relevant. She is literally still relevant.
Yeah.
In 2023, she made history with being the first female artist to debut in the top 10 of the Hot 100 with a Spanish language song.
Well, they also said that she's near peerless. They said in the article, she's near peerless. Okay, then why is she up here with all these peers? Why is she up here with all these peers? Get them out of here.
17 is too low for Miss Shakira.
17 is too low. I think we could have been a little bit closer to the top 10, and I would have been a lot happier because, I just think that she is like a timeless superstar.
We're talking pop stars. Put her up over Jay-Z. Come on now.
Yeah.
Pop star.
Put her up over Jay-Z. Come on
Pop
now.
star. Can he isolate his hips in that way? Do his hips lie? They do.
I think they do. And we know that.
Those are lying hips,
and
if
we
I've
know
ever
that.
seen some. We do know that.
We know that.
We know that his hips have been lying. Sometimes some shit goes down when there's $1 billion on the elevator.
Yep.
Number 18. And this shocked me too. I thought this was extremely low. The Weeknd.
Mr. The Weeknd. I actually think that The Weeknd, I think he's one of the most interesting artists. I'm not spinning him all the time, but I always check out what he's doing. I mean, the idol behaviors notwithstanding, for the record, the idol, that didn't happen. I will, for his benefit, pretend that didn't happen. But
Never
his music really, really stood out to me when he first came out, and he continues to really stand out. I think he's great, and I also really enjoyed reading about his like beginnings as like an underground, like nobody knows what he looks like, Toronto underground star, and how like he had his first show in Toronto and nobody had ever seen his face because he was only on SoundCloud, and people from labels
were
begging
mystery
to buy tickets. Yeah, like $1,300. I'll give you $1,300 for your $20 ticket. I'll do anything to get into the show to see The Weeknd. And well, I mean, who wouldn't? Voice of an Angel. Let's start there. I think he kind of is, like you said earlier, The Weeknd was like the darker, more industrial, like enigmatic version of Drake. And that was really, really cool when he first came out. I thought he was like the coolest guy ever when he first came out. Not that he's not anymore, but like that air of mystery that he had, it's been kind of demystified.
If you were on Tumblr,
you know what I mean?
It was like him and Frank Ocean. You were like, I need to know more about these incredible artists. He also has the record-breaking Blinding Lights, which is Billboard's top Hot 100 song of all time and the longest running single in chart history with 90 weeks. How are we at number 18 on the Billboard chart when we have the longest running single in chart history? He has 4 chart-topping albums: Beauty Behind the Madness, iconic; Starboy, also iconic; After Hours, and My Dear Melancholy. I don't think I've listened to My Dear Melancholy. I can't think of a song from that. But on Spotify, he was the first artist to ever surpass 100 million monthly listeners. And the After Hours Till Dawn tour was one of the highest grossing tours of 2022 to 2023. So I'm saying he's done the Super Bowl. Hello?
I think if anything, if I had to attribute it to anything, I guess that he's just too new. I guess that he just hasn't been around.
Maybe
it's like
so.
Jay-Z has been operating since like
2015?
1996 or something like that.
That's
and he's
true.
been like, so
he actually might be the newest debuting artist on the list when we talk about chart entries, because it seems like his first album was 2015. So he might be the most recent artist on this list.
I think he is. So yeah, that's very interesting. And I think deserved, for the record. I think deserved. He's super interesting to me. I really like his new song, by the way. Yeah, it's on the radio all the time. And I like it every time it comes on. I'm like, this is great.
He's very talented. He's extremely talented. And also he's a really good vibe curator. Like, I think the songs that he makes are like landscapes. They're not just songs. Like The Hills is a really good example of that. These songs, when I was in New York in my club rat phase, these songs were being played every single night. Every single night at every club. It was The Weeknd and Drake over and over with Rihanna sprinkled in. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. And I was there.
Back to that.
And I was there, and I was having the.
We need to go.
I was
back
the belle of
that.
the ball.
We need to hear
so
Take
fun.
Care, Into Too Good, Into Work,
Into the Hills, and a little bit of Post Malone.
Or
Throw
Kiss in My
circles
Face
in there. Throw circles in there.
Period. Well, number 19, we have BTS. And I was actually very glad to see this. And it reminded me, again, that the K-pop craze that has taken over the Western world, infiltrated Western music, was really set by, I mean, you could argue many people, but I think the first time people really started paying attention to K-pop as like a real force of culture was with BTS.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. BTS was the first K-pop group that I remember hearing about. Even before Blackpink, I was getting BTS content put on my timeline. I mean, I have to be totally honest with you. They're not, I don't know a lot about them. I've
Me
never been
either.
into boy bands. So a K-pop boy band really escapes my ability to like grasp. I am into like Blackpink. I do like Red Velvet, all that kind of stuff. But boy bands have always been a thing. And if I'm being totally honest, when we're talking about this list, it's like, are we talking about bands or are we talking about pop stars? Is
Yeah,
that fair to say? And I say the same thing about One Direction.
yeah,
I
well,
say
I
the
have a lot
exact
to
same
say
thing
about One
about One
Direction
Direction.
being on this list. But I think that, so to me, it really seems like this list is more about moments in culture and what artists represented and ushered in those important things. I don't think they could do a top pop star list without talking about K-pop. If they're going with Latin pop too, they kind of have to mention K-pop because it has, just as a commercial force, been so dominant because the fans are so ardent about like buying, streaming, doing all of this stuff. So really, to me, it's more of an acknowledgement of the fan culture of K-pop rather than specifically BTS as artists. And this is the trouble I have with K-pop a lot of the time, is that I can see the artistry and the excellence in the dancing and the performance and the execution of that. The videography is incredible. But when we just get down to the nuts and the bolts of the music, I'm like, these songs are not going number one because everybody wants to listen to this song. These songs are going number one because the K-pop streaming parties are happening and all of their fans are going sicko mode. There are, I mean, Dynamite, I guess that was one that stands out to
That was
me.
one that I know.
But in terms of music, this is where K-pop kind of falls short for me some of the time.
I think that there's a lot of really interesting producers in K-pop. I think Teddy, who works with Blackpink a lot. I think that there's a lot of really interesting industrial sounding, industrial inspired pop music coming out of K-pop.
See,
And I think that
has better music than BTS, if I can speak and say my truth. Like, that is more interesting to me.
We would think that. We would think
to be
that.
fair, we would think that.
We would think that. aespa, that I listen to, if I'm listening to K-pop, it is female girl bands. That's what I'm listening to. And it's nothing against BTS. I think Jungkook is great. Like, for the record, I think he's very talented. I'm always impressed every time I see him.
Interesting.
He's very, very interesting artist. But I'm just saying, I mean, as I'm sitting here with my NSYNC t-shirt on, NSYNC is like an exception to the rule, and the Backstreet Boys. But I don't really like boy bands in my adult life. From teenagehood on. No.
Well, I can't blame you because I'm not doing it either. So I'm saying I understand why we have to include them, but I'm kind of like, do they belong on the list? I don't know. I can go either way.
I mean, I agree with you. I am really happy to see a K-pop inclusion. I think, and if it's going to be anybody,
it's got to be them.
It may as well
They're
be
the
BTS.
biggest one. They're the biggest one. Put them in. Number 20, also kind of low, Bruno Mars.
Well, who can deny it? Who can deny it? And
I was surprised by this.
Here's the thing about Bruno is that, like, when I went through it, his article is the shortest. There are no interesting quotes that I could pull because they had nothing really interesting to say about him. I think really what it is, if he's nothing else, he makes hits. Is he changing the face of music as we know it? Well, no. Is he completely reinventing the wheel? Absolutely not. But he makes hits.
He's an entertainer. He's a great performer.
Yep.
His debut album spent 700 weeks on the Billboard 200. 700 weeks, just the way you are, Grenade. Now, I can see an argument being made for something that he ushered in to music here. I think there was a return to cheesiness, to schmaltz in a period of time where it was very EDM focused. So I can say, building off of what Justin Timberlake was trying to put down, I can see why it was there. Uptown Funk, Locked Out of Heaven.
Song ever made.
Those are kind of the Weekend-ish songs. Locked Out of Heaven sounds like the Weeknd could have made it if he took a happy pill.
Locked Out of Heaven is actually one of my favorite Bruno Mars songs. I love.
Oh, it's great.
That song comes on, I'm going crazy.
He's kind of like Adele in that there's something nostalgic about what he does.
Yeah, I like Bruno Mars. I like him. I have no bad words to say about Bruno. I just there he is. And I clap my chair. Fedora.
I'm actually gonna say with you, when I really try to think about, I mean, Silk Sonic, it's not, there isn't anything really groundbreaking going on here.
Although I do love some Silk Sonic. Smoking out the window of the benzo.
Up next, we have 21, Lil Wayne, who I have to admit I know absolutely nothing about, so I have to give it over to Madeline to take it away.
Oh, mama knows a thing or two, let me tell you. When earlier when we were talking about Usher and you were like, well, I don't really know really much about Usher, I was like, if you don't know Usher, you definitely don't know Lil Wayne.
Definitely don't know. I know that Nicki Minaj loves him. I know Nicki Minaj loves him.
Oh, yes. There's this really interesting quote, a couple of really interesting Lil Wayne quotes. So he says, this is what he says about himself. Before I stepped into music, everyone looked a certain way and everyone did a certain thing. Look at me. Now look at music. They all look like me and I love it. And he's right. And he's right. That's the thing. Before Lil Wayne, when we were talking earlier about how, this idea of like rap music being pop music, the true curator of that experience is Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne. This was during a time when I was in middle school. Who we were listening to, which was Lil Wayne. We didn't think of rap music like Lil Wayne as rap music. We thought of it as pop music. This was like, this is what's popular. We were listening to Lollipop. She licked me like a lollipop in middle school. Well, yes. And we were saying, this is a pop song. Literally, that's how I remember thinking about it. Because Lil Wayne...
I know the song Down. I know that
with
one.
Jay Sean? Oh, greatest song ever made. That's another thing about Lil Wayne. He is a really good features artist. There was a time where you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Lil Wayne, without hearing Lil Wayne. Got Money?
Was he also very prolific as like a producer as well? Did he have some sort of like what is this thing that he has with Nicki and Drake? Did he discover them? Did he sign them?
He discovered them. He signed them.
Young Money.
Young Money.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as his producing credits, I really can't speak to that very much. But I don't think of Lil Wayne in my day-to-day life. I don't stream him anymore, and I definitely think he's from a certain era. But reading this article about him really made me see him and his legacy a lot differently. And I gained a whole new appreciation for Lil Wayne, like as an artist and what he actually meant for hip-hop and pop. He called himself, I'm the greatest rapper of all time, before anybody thought that of him until people started saying it. They just started parodying him because he said
That's one way to do it.
That's the kind of person he was, and still is, I think. He was just like, I don't know.
Swagged out.
He was just everything, everywhere. He was everything everywhere all at once. He was Lil Wayne.
Well, Nicki Minaj has been trying to tell me for years. She's been in my head. Young Money raised me.
Young Money raised me. And I'm telling you that right now. He also I think he was like one of the first people who was like really popular, who was wearing a grill and stuff like that. Like a lot of the things that he did in hip hop are things that we've just so normalized and associate with hip hop that we don't even think of like, oh, Lil Wayne did this. But it's like, well, Young Money. He did. Lil Wayne, what did she say? She says, Young Money raised me, Lil Wayne saved me, or something like that.
No, grew up Adam Paisley. Because I'm still a hood. Hollywood couldn't change.
Money raised me.
I'll keep going forever. Thank you, Lil Wayne. Up next, 22. This is the most perplexing inclusion on this list to me, and it is One Direction. And when they started talking about the boy band phenomenon, I was kind of seeing the vision a little bit, and then we got into the chart information, and it's not there, baby. Their best charting single is the number 4 smash of What Makes You Beautiful, their debut single. They've had 4 Billboard top 10 singles, and it was the first group. Their first Up All Night, their debut album, was the first debut by a UK group to top the Billboard 200. Okay. Okay.
Well, listen, now you're talking to, I don't think either of us were ever into One Direction, really.
No.
And so that makes us kind of different. I think that most other people who are really into pop music, like us from our generation, are like, oh, I love, One Direction. I liked this song and this song. It's like, I can't name a single One Direction song I liked. I have to push back
on the idea that they music, like my thing with One Direction is that like, it was a scam. These boys were not that talented. There were a couple of them that were okay. You go look at those X Factor performances. And they didn't ask for it, to be fair. They were thrown together. And this is all the orchestrating of someone behind the scenes, Simon Cowell's magic evil plan that came to life. The music that they made is not good. It hasn't held up. They are not good songs. They are not relevant songs. When you ask someone to name 5 One Direction songs that was not like a Directioner, they can't, because there aren't that many. Whereas if you ask someone to name 5 Justin Bieber songs, you probably could. It's a different influence. And to me, the One Direction phenomenon, because Billboard was saying they brought back the boy band, like revolutionized it, modernized it. I was kind of like, but the thing that they did really was galvanize teenage girls around fandom. And you know who did that before them, that paved the way for them to do that not a year or two later? Justin Bieber. There would be no One Direction if there was no Bieber fever. Like, I see those two things as being very related, especially because I watched my friends at school go from being like Beliebers to being Directioners. And then they were kind of both at the same time. But I push back because the music is just not that good, babes. Like, the impact on popular culture beyond it just being a band that people liked, like, what did One Direction really change about boy bands? I would argue that BTS is more impactful as a boy band than One Direction was.
Well, here's the thing about it. There's this quote in the article. It was like, oh, One Direction changed the way that we thought about boy bands. And I was like, yeah, they made it worse. They were saying, like, oh, they don't dance. They don't play instruments or anything. It's like, yeah, so that's worse.
Sucked. So that's NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys got their up on that stage and danced. They performed. One Direction got up on stage in their skinny jeans and their threadbare American Apparel t-shirts, and they ambled around the stage while hooting and hollering into the microphone and pulling each other's pants down.
Yeah, literally. They would just like goof around on stage all the time.
So what's being revolutionized here is my question. I'm not doubting their commercial impact, but they literally didn't do anything.
Well, I'm going to inform you right now. If those boys in BTS weren't dancing their hearts out,
we wouldn't be
they would not be where they are today. They can't just let me just show up on stage and I'm kind of stoned and I don't remember the lines, but
precision,
I'm here.
The execution. Yeah. So it's like, even though I can say BTS music hasn't really moved me ever, I look at BTS and I'm like, I see why they're huge. Yeah. Like, the level of talent and artistry and excellence. I look at One Direction performances and I'm idgeballing.
And what you said earlier about some of them really not being that talented, I mean, some of them
actually just like can't really sing that well. And it's obvious that the only people that could really, really sing in that group were Zayn and Harry, that were like real singers that had like distinctive tones that would lend to them being solo artists. And the rest of them were just there. And it's not like they were made use of. They just stood there.
Well, listen, now let's not say too much about Niall now. Let Niall cook. I let Niall cook. I let him exist. He's my favorite.
Cook, but he's not cooking up anything special to me.
Well, his solo career has been nothing, but that doesn't mean that I'm not cheering. That doesn't mean that I'm not cheering. The little lad from Ireland, I cheer for him.
Of course, and it's R.I.P. Liam Payne. Of course, there's that. Course.
Right. But Niall is still my favorite.
After I called your band terrible. So I think being on this list is a bit preposterous.
I do. I find it preposterous. That's a good word. It's preposterous.
Mm-hmm. How could preposterous. You? How dare
it's preposterous. You guys, you left Kesha off the list, but you put One Direction in.
One Direction. Okay. Are we still are we still saying what makes you beautiful? No, but we're saying don't stop, make it pop. Rats.
What do you think about that?
Rats. 23. Also, actually, Kesha's reign, that their excuse for not including Kesha was that her like period of hit making was too short. One Direction had 3 years and no number one hits. Kesha had how many number ones in that span of time?
Open it up.
Oh, I'm getting mad now. I'm getting
angry.
Open
the case. No, open the case.
Kesha should be on that.
Kesha should be on the list.
In place of One Direction, she had a way bigger mark on popular culture. Charlie XCX, hyperpop, nothing without Kesha.
Say it. I've been saying it since day one. You can't brat if you don't tick tock on the clock. And I think we should talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can't Kim Petras if you don't Kesha.
Well,
maybe you shouldn't Kim Petras anyway. 23, we have Bad Bunny. Why was Bad Bunny included, Madeline?
Well, so now this is the thing. Remember earlier we were talking about The Weeknd is the most recent addition? I think it's actually Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, I think, is probably... I think that it's a little bit soon. Mm-hmm. I think that it's a little bit soon to include Bad Bunny. When I was reading the article and I was reading about, like, how much of a ground... You know that, like, he's one of the first... So, like, Latin hip-hop songs, R&B, I guess you could say, like, Despacito by Justin Bieber never went number one. Gasolina by Daddy Yankee never went number one, but Bad Bunny went number one like right out the gate. So there's like something
Wow.
really special and like unique
A
about
force
Bad Bunny.
behind him.
There's like a force behind him, and I think it's also like really interesting, like him as a figure of culture and like what he means to so many people and the way that he presents himself and kind of distances himself from machismo and like all that stuff that he does.
Yeah.
That it's pretty awesome, and I really like Bad Bunny. I think Benito is like a really interesting artist. It feels soon. You know what I'm thinking? Like, you left Post Malone off the list, you left 50 Cent off the list, but we're going to put Bad Bunny. It just feels like early. It feels even earlier than The Weeknd.
I guess
You know
they
what I
must
mean?
just think that his recent accomplishments are so stunning that they
I think
deserve
they are.
that.
I guess they are. I mean, I support it. I'm not saying that he should not be on this list, but like if I had to make a comment, that would be it. It's like he's recent. He's really, really recent. Like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
That's new. But I agree there also is something special about the way that people are responding to him. Like it's
Yes.
I remember seeing his concert and I was like, what? I did not know people were into it like that. And it was a concert in America. It was not a concert overseas.
Well, what's interesting is his numbers here. So he's had one number one Hot 100 hit, but he's had 12 top 10 Billboard Hot 100 hits, but he's had 14 number ones on the Latin charts since 2018.
He's
That's
smashing.
Crazy.
And Shakira's had, I think, that many in her entire career.
It's crazy.
So maybe this is why he's on the list.
This is what he's making an impact like really, really fast. Like really fast he's coming onto the scene.
But then their argument for other people falls apart if we're doing that. Well.
Yes, but we don't look too close. We don't look too close.
Number 24, we have the ChatGPT language learning pop music model, Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran managed to get a spot on this list. Why? Because his impact on the charts is monumental. 5 Billboard 200 number one albums, including Divide, which produced the 12-week chart topper. Shape of You, now among the top 10 biggest songs in the Hot 100 history. Tracks like Perfect and Thinking Out Loud have become staples at weddings. Perfect was number one with a remix featuring Beyonce. He has 8 Hot 100 top 10 hits as a lead artist, and his global influence is evident with multiple songs crossing 1 billion streams on Spotify, making him one of the platform's most streamed artists of all time.
And there you go. That's on period.
And it's manure.
It's what?
It's manure. It's manure. Manure? Manure.
Thank you. Manure. It's manure. I was like, who?
Manure. It's garbage is what I'm saying.
And I've talked about this before. Ed Sheeran was replaced by a pod person.
Yeah.
He was. Well, when I think about him,
album, goodbye.
Well, people were really, really moved by him and really impressed by him. He has such a good voice. I mean, lest we forget, he really does have like a really unique, specific, really nice voice. And I just remember seeing videos of him, just like him and his guitar from the first album, like playing the
with
18
the loop
and stuff
pedal,
and being like, this is so impressive. Like his first album is really, really impressive. I would honestly say X is pretty good too. We start losing the plot around Divide and all this other stuff, and I think
X
that
actually is pretty good. You're right. X is pretty good.
Yeah, that thing that he does where he starts like doing rap. That's when he loses.
You want to hear a tragedy?
Personally.
South of the Border featuring Camila Cabello. That is an unbelievably bad song.
And I don't like they posit it as like a good thing in the article, like, oh, his EDM crossovers, and I recognize those are hits. Other people like them. I recognize that. I'm saying that it doesn't resonate with me, and that's when I dislike him. That's when he rubs me the wrong way.
Has sold his soul. Like he really is one of those people that had a lot of industry goodwill and was very liked for a very specific thing, and then became obsessed with charts. And we know this because Taylor has given interviews where she's talked about how Ed is literally obsessed with gamifying the charts, like creating songs that can be as addictive and as earwormy and as chart topping as possible. But I think what you lose in that process is that sometimes the songs become soulless. So it's like, even if they're technically a perfect hit, they don't resonate because everyone can tell that it was Sophia the robot that wrote and sang it.
Well, now Shape of You is one of the craziest. I cannot, to this day, Shape of You will never die. It's one of those songs that plays everywhere. And Candy Burris, Candy, you did it again. You've
She
written
got her
another hit.
credits.
You've written another hit. But
She's
Shape
rich
of You is
forever.
kind of like the last time. I respect Shape of You for what it is. It's like kind of like one of those perfectly crafted pop songs. But it's like, what happened
Everything
to what
like
happened to the
Shivers.
boy?
Did you hear that song Shivers? I was like, you're just trying to do
Oh, I
Shape of
hate
You
that song.
again. And it's
I
over
hate
and
that
over and
song.
over. He's doing this.
Bad
and
habits.
he's completely alienated people who like good music, which I think is a bit of a dangerous game to play when you are a musician that's as talented as Ed Sheeran is. Like, just technically, he's a very talented musician. And now he's stuck playing perfect to, I don't know, the 50-year-old couple from Manchester who are having a night out after 25 years of marriage. Like, that is your life now. And you made a pretty penny, that's for sure. But I think like his cultural impact is kind of negative because I think he made pop music stupider.
Something was born.
No.
After the storm.
It wasn't.
On the 4th of July. It was for me.
I didn't hear it.
It was for me.
So you give him grace for that one line.
Well, yes. No, I give him grace for, and I've told you this, if I was there that dark day in London, when he took the stage with Taylor, it would have been over. Mm-hmm. I would have been weeping. I would have been on the floor. I would have been gone.
Everyone would have been like, for this song?
Well, yes!
But yeah, Ed Sheeran's purpose seems to be to irritate people. No.
Well, here's the thing about Ed is like, you know who I know that I hope she's not watching this, or maybe she is. This isn't a bad thing. I have a friend from high school who loves Ed Sheeran. And it's like, you're the kind of person who would.
This is the thing, like, but you see what I mean now? It's a mark that you carry upon you. If someone says, oh, you must really like Ed Sheeran, what you really mean to say is that you don't really have good music taste. And that's
you're listening to Top 40.
Ed Sheeran.
Not that there's anything wrong with Top 40. Hello.
We love Top 40.
This is the Swiftologist channel. We love Top 40, but it's like, there is something to be said about only listening to Top 40.
This is not that. This is not that. And then we round out our list with someone who's scraped in by the grace of God. One, Ms. Katy Perry.
Catherine Hudson. You made it. You almost didn't make it. We saw you fumbling. We saw you fumbling, but you made it.
You almost didn't get the ball over the line, but you just nudged it.
Congratulations to Katy. I think, to tell you the truth, if Katy had an era even 75% as successful as Teenage Dream, I would even say 60% as successful. Another era as successful as that one, she could probably be a little bit higher up on the list.
We'd be having a different conversation.
That has not occurred. And Teenage Dream is kind of her legacy. Is it one of the most successful pop albums in terms of the Billboard charts?
Yes.
Of all time? Yes. Well, yes. And that's why she's here. But I kind of feel like she's here for one reason and one reason alone, and that's because of Teenage Dream, which is great. But it's like,
it has become clearer and clearer that Katy Perry is a legacy act, and that her ability to make music that connects and is successful is non-existent. So, I mean, this is what they said. Despite her recent commercial lulls, Perry's legacy as one of the 21st century's most emblematic pop stars remains unshaken, with Teenage Dream still serving as a gold standard for pop perfection. Fans continue to root for her comeback, drawn to her ability to merge chart-topping hits with visual cultural moments. That has not happened since Teenage Dream.
Generous. I think we're being
generous.
Yes,
we are being generous. I mean, the article itself had to acknowledge that she has really not been able to create a legacy after Teenage Dream. And luckily for her, Teenage Dream is so good that to have that as your legacy is a huge accomplishment. But does that make her does one album make you one of the top 25 pop stars of the 21st century? I guess
no, and
yes.
I'm saying where's Kesha? I'm saying where's
you're
Kesha?
Saying where's Kesha? Well, I'm saying, yeah, where's Kesha? I'm saying let's get Justin Timberlake out of here. Goodbye.
So Justin Timberlake is getting the boot. He's getting the boot. Okay. Well, I'm not saying that. I don't think that Katy just like shouldn't be on the list. I think that 25.
No, she should be.
25 is where she belongs. I'll say that. I'll say that.
Teenage Dream is that good that she deserves that.
Well, yes. I mean, I thought that something that they said about her was really interesting, which is that she was like the definition of pop in 2010, like in the early 2010s. And it's like, that's true. Like when you thought about pop music, you thought about Katy Perry.
For a sec, she was Britney.
For a quick second, she was like Britney. She held it in her hands, ladies and gentlemen. Did it flutter away? mysteriously as it appeared? Well, yes.
Thought I
Like
caught
mist
lightning
through
in
her
a bottle,
fingers.
but
It
it's
was
gone
gone again.
Gone again. All right, why don't we speed through some of the honorable mentions and why they didn't make the top 25? 50 Cent didn't make the top 25. They said that his dominance faded quickly after losing a high-profile sales battle with Kanye West with no major hits or albums since. Clocked.
50 Cent. Come on,
It's
man.
kind of true. It's kind of true. Alicia
Poor
Keys,
buddy.
her pop superstar peak was limited to her first 3 albums with no major hit singles since 2012. Now, I agree with that.
Well, yeah, it's fair.
Billie Eilish, simply a matter of time. Her rise was too recent to match the longevity and volume of other stars. So we need to put her volume up against Bad Bunny because I would like to see that. If it's significantly different, then the logic holds up, but I wouldn't be sold on that entirely.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that comparison because on Rolling Stone, they listed Billie Eilish's "When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go" as the number 7, I think, best debut album of all time. So it's like, where's the disconnect with Billie? It's like some people are like, this is, one blah blah blah, and then other people are like, she's
she's polarizing.
Too young. She's
I
too
guess.
Young. Yeah, I guess
Cardi
she is.
B. Cardi B. Madeline's favorite woman. Her mainstream
I think they're
breakthrough,
being really generous with that.
Her discography
even mentioning her as an
lacks
honorable
the
mention.
depths of a sophomore album. They're basically saying you haven't made another album. Is that true? She only has 1 album? This is shocking me.
I don't know.
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. It's none of your business. Carrie Underwood, despite her consistencies in country music, her crossover success into pop has been limited in the last decade. This is true.
Well, she's NFL football. It's Friday night in America. Get your balls out and throw them around.
Keep her there. Keep her there. Chris Brown. His career remains divisive due to personal controversies, with his early years standing out as the most celebrated.
Why are we even mentioning him? That's what I want to know. I saw that and I was like,
what's honorable about that mention?
It costs you nothing to say nothing about him.
This is a dishonorable mention, actually.
Yep.
That's what that is. Christina Aguilera. Well, that's easy. No success. Her major
what did they say?
largely ended after 2006, with most recent hits being features. You mean Not Myself Tonight didn't go number 1? Can't believe that. Doja Cat. While prolific in recent years, her recency and lack of a number 1 album work against her.
That's fair.
Okay, interesting.
That's
Dua
fair.
Lipa. While a dominant force in new disco pop, she lacks a history of world-stopping releases compared to others. Do they lie?
I didn't hear a lie.
Future. He remains more hip-hop than mainstream pop, with few truly pop crossover moments. Jennifer Lopez. Her peak came during a less competitive pop era, and her music lacks the lasting cultural reverence of others. So what you're saying is she's really bad. I get it. Kelly Clarkson. While still a cultural icon, her biggest hits were confined to the first decade of her career. That is true.
Karaoke.
Lives forever. Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. Though critically acclaimed, his focus has always been more on artistry than pop stardom. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Kesha. Her hit-making era was relatively brief, with only 1 major hit in the past decade. Be quiet, Tiffany.
My
Well, there are many people on this list that haven't had a hit in the last decade.
Well,
and none
of them
had an album with 4 number 1 hits from their debut. Huh?
It's a vendetta. No, it's a vendetta. You know how Swifties were saying, Billboard, they're out to get Taylor. They're out to get Kesha. That's my tin hat.
I wonder, obviously the Dr. Luke thing, I think that has caused Kesha a lot more damage behind the scenes in the industry than we realize. Because he's still super powerful and working.
This isn't just like Swiftie paranoia. This is like an actual thing.
This is a real thing. She sued him because he was preventing her from being able to work. And have you seen Kesha being able to get really good opportunities since that lawsuit began?
No.
Upsetting. Lana Del Rey. Despite her influence, her chart presence has been minimal, with success tied to a niche cult following. That's an easy one. That's easy. Lorde. She's delivered iconic music, but her commercial success and output volume fall short. Well, yes. Maroon 5. While consistent hitmakers, their influence is more evolutionary than revolutionary. Clocked. I'd say that about Ed Sheeran.
the tea has been cooked up in the oven. And it's like, I don't consider Maroon 5... I mean, it's like at least One Direction and BTS have like star quality. Maroon 5 are not stars.
They've got Adam Levine.
A star?
No.
Now, ladies and gentlemen.
Stealer of Avril's last name.
Let me ask the audience. No. Let me ask the audience.
Nobody cares. Where are their stands? They don't exist. Even Ed Sheeran has stands. Maroon 5 doesn't. Megan Thee Stallion, her breakthrough album came only 5 years ago, and she has yet to release a number one. Missy Elliott, after 2005, her music output became sporadic with no full album releases in nearly 2 decades. Nelly, his peak was in the 2000s with little crossover success. Olivia Rodrigo, her career only started in 2021, her rise too recent. Pink, Madeline's other favorite lady, though a touring powerhouse, she hasn't had a dominating era of hits and albums. Hasn't had a dominating era at all? Is that true? Huh.
No, maybe I think that era where she was going, so what? I'm still a rock star. Like that was
only
era.
One hit. There was only one hit from that album.
But she was doing so what, and then she was doing in that same era. She was doing "Where the Free Raise Your Glass," that song.
That's a different era.
And then that same era. No, that's the same. No, and then "You in Your Hand."
No, you have got it all wrong. You are not the Pinkologist.
Well, what do I know?
You are not the Pinkologist.
I've never purported myself to be the Pinkologist.
You in Your Hand was on the album with Who Knew and Stupid Girls. I would say that probably is her era that had the most hits. Then after that, it was that Funhouse album released right after Circus, same theme, with So What and Please Don't Leave Me. Raise Your Glass came on like a compilations album later. It was like one single from a compilation greatest hits record.
Now, let me ask you a very fair question. How do you know this much about the discography of Pink? It's because
I liked
Jackie.
Her. I used
Jackie
to like her.
is listening. She's turning her up. I can't wait to see Jackie flipping around.
I used to like Pink. Dear Mr. President got me. It got me. I was like, who is this? It got me.
Did you, speaking of Dear Mr. President moments, am I the only one who didn't hear Commander-in-Chief by Demi Lovato?
You didn't hear that?
I just heard that the other day, and I was like,
what did you think of it?
I thought it was Dear Mr. President. That was the first thing that came to my head, is like, this is Dear Mr. President Part 2, but without the impact.
And so embarrassing. And by Demi
Dear
Lovato.
Mr. President was kind of like, people responded to it, right?
Oh, and Dear Mr. I think it was written with the Indigo Girls or Linda Perry, someone who is like a really good songwriter. The song itself, the lyrics are actually pretty good.
I mean, I remember it, and it was years ago. Dear Mr. President.
Well, the chicks were getting canceled for saying the same thing.
Makes you think. It's a double standard.
Why aren't they on this?
You can't be a country girl.
Why aren't they getting an honorable mention on this list?
Well,
if Carrie Underwood's there,
that's a good point. If NFL, it's Sunday night. It's Sunday night. It gets to be like on the list.
Had a couple crossover hits. Wide Open Spaces was a crossover hit.
Cowboy Take Me Away.
Their cover of Landslide, also Not Ready to Make
Number
Nice.
Number one worldwide hit.
Okay, Robbed.
Finally, I was trying to think of somebody they hadn't mentioned, and I couldn't.
Oh,
the Chicks is a good one. The Chicks.
Post Malone, why not? Despite his hit streak, his career feels relatively short and uneven. He's doing a stadium, girls.
He thinks he is. I want to see the receipts on that. I want to see it sell.
He's booked it.
Yeah.
Sean Paul. That wouldn't have even occurred to me. I'm sorry, but they said that his leading artist failed after the 2000s. Okay. SZA, her true pop stardom began around 2021, leaving much of the 21st century outside her timeline. Okay.
Well, I think that she should have been number 5. So, no. I guess
or number 1.
Nobody else feels that way? Okay, just me. Okay.
You know what? Okay. I'm actually a little bit upset that Avril Lavigne didn't get an honorable mention either.
Well, I think
if Kelly Clarkson's getting one, Avril Lavigne was making hits long after Kelly Clarkson was. She had What the Hell? Smile.
Right. I think that is an omission, but I think that they thought that, okay, we have Olivia Rodrigo and we have Kelly Clarkson.
You're not going to do the blueprint for both of those things?
No, they're not.
Wow.
I guess. What do you want me to say?
Well, we've gone through it. You asked us to go through the list.
You asked us, and we delivered.
And you know what?
It's so funny. I'm wearing my NSYNC t-shirt. every time I kept looking at it, and I was like, Justin Timberlake, you're nothing.
Meanwhile,
I don't like boy bands. And I've got my
bye.
NSYNC t-shirt on. I do love NSYNC, for the record. If anyone's like, you said all this stuff, it's like, well, I do love NSYNC. I don't have to love the man behind the mask.
You
I don't. I love the mask. Yeah.
And there
I
it
love
is.
NSYNC. And
don't forget to go to evolutionofasnake.com and get your tickets to the Snares tour, because you're going to want to see it. And the Snammies are happening live on the Swiftologist YouTube channel at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., one of those two things on the 14th of December. 9 p.m. Eastern on the 14th. So we will see you there.